Chapter 679. The war drums were like thunder, shaking the earth. The warhounds' army charged forward like a dark mass, finally beginning their full attack. When they entered the range of the southern summer archers, a terrifying whistling sound came from the sky. It was like a large dark cloud was covering them, instantly blocking the sunlight as countless arrows fell down. Ice, fire, and explosion, these runes? The arrows had shocking might, instantly causing heavy losses to the warhounds' army. Release the arrows. Counterattack. A warhounds chief personally led the charge. Let them see the might of the warhounds' kingdom. The warhounds' army charged forward with a strange roar, shooting arrows into the sky. Countless arrows fell onto the city walls, trying to use the rain of arrows to suppress the resistance of the southern summer defenders. The refined ruler coldly ordered, "Activate the array." The Shangguan family's people stood in a circle, each of them holding a banner covered in talismans. Suddenly, the flag was stuck on the city wall. Talisman? The talismans were activated, immediately forming a protective barrier around the city walls. The warhounds' arrows were all bounced off the protective barrier. The warhounds tried to climb the city walls, but the southern summer country had already placed large amounts of talismans on the city walls. As long as the warhounds touched the trap, it would immediately trigger flames, frost, or explosions. Was it easy for the warhounds' army to climb the city walls? The southern summer defenders just needed to hold on. As long as the city was not broken, it would be victory. The calm martial ruler had escaped from the battle in Song State, so the situation would instantly change. The Fong King was well aware of this, so he did not hesitate to go crazy. The Fong King coldly stared at the intense battlefield. "Move out with the vulture cavalry." Large amounts of black dots appeared in the clouds at this time. Countless warhound soldiers riding vultures passed through the defensive line and appeared in the sky above Imperial City. After all, Royal City was not a fortress. The frontline fortresses were almost completely enclosed fortresses, but it was impossible for Royal City to be enclosed. Therefore, the aerial troops could completely bypass the defensive line and land in the center of the city to launch an attack, breaking through Royal City's defenses from the inside. Large amounts of warhound soldiers fell down from the sky like dumplings. The warhounds' vulture cavalry had transported at least 30,000–40,000 warhounds elite soldiers into Imperial City. If these 30,000–40,000 elite soldiers and 20,000 vulture cavalry attacked from the inside, it would be a large disturbance and trouble for the southern summer country. The Wild Flame Army blocked the enemy's airborne troops. The Burning Sun ruler immediately ordered the Nangong family's Wild Flame heavy armor to move out, creating a solid defense for Imperial City from the inside. Griffin Knights, go forward and tie down this aerial army. The 2,000-strong Griffin Knights had been waiting for a long time. When they received the Burning Sun ruler's order, they immediately flew into the sky and attacked the vulture cavalry 10 times their number in the sky above Imperial City. Although the Griffin Knights did not have the advantage in numbers, their aura was not inferior at all. The Griffin Knights themselves were not weak level 2 demon beasts, and each of the Royal Knights was a peak elite of the southern summer country. Even if the enemy was 10 times their number, they still had the ability to fight. This is the southern summer country's strongest trump card army? The vulture cavalry commander gave a cold laugh. Truly laughable fools. The Griffin Knights were the peak force protecting the southern summer country and Imperial City. In order to create the Griffin Knights, the southern summer country bought griffins from other countries at a high price each year and invested a large amount of resources into the Griffin Knights. These Griffin Knights represented the southern summer country's authority in a sense. If they could defeat this army, it would be a destructive blow to the southern summer country's morale. Since they're seeking death, we'll let them see how strong our Eagle Burial Kingdom's aerial army is. The vulture cavalry commander loudly ordered, "Kill!" The Griffin Knight commander faced the dense amount of vulture cavalry and immediately raised his spear high up as he shouted, "Prepare for battle!" The two aerial armies moved rapidly against each other. Just as they were about to collide, the Griffin Knight commander loudly shouted, "Wind Blade Array!" 2,000 griffins simultaneously gathered their strength and released a wave of cyan wind blades. The griffins were much stronger than the vultures, so this storm-like wave of wind blades was very powerful. If they directly hit the vultures, they would definitely not be able to withstand it. In an instant, a large number of them would be wiped out. But how could it be this easy? The vulture cavalry was a regular army of the eagle burial kingdom. Not only were they well trained, they also had rich battle experience. When the griffins gathered their strength, the vulture cavalry were already prepared and dodged at the same time. The green wind blades passed through them, but not many of them hit their target. Looking from the ground, the orderly vulture cavalry suddenly exploded. All the vulture cavalry moved in different directions, instantly forming a semicircle that seemed like it was trying to swallow the griffin knights. Kill them! The vulture cavalry completely surrounded the griffin knights, sealing off the space around them. After all, the vulture cavalry had the advantage in numbers. If they used a blockade strategy, the griffin cavalry's movements would be hindered. Although the royal knights were very strong and the griffin mounts were very fierce, the warhound's vulture cavalry were not bad either. Once they were surrounded by the vulture cavalry, it would be hard for them to escape in a short period of time. The griffin knight commander's expression changed. Break through. How could it be that easy? Shoot. The griffin knights only had one spear, and most of the time they fought, they relied on their griffins to charge at the enemy. The griffins could release strong wind blades, which made up for their lack of long-range attacks, so the griffin knights did not have long-range weapons. The vulture cavalry's situation was different. The vulture beasts had thick skin and were very fast, but they did not have long-range attacks. It was because of this that the vulture cavalry's selection process had to be divine archers. There were even some strong vulture beasts that were paired with 2 cavalrymen, one for close combat and one for long-range attacks, so they could work together seamlessly. The griffin knights had just entered close combat with the first row of vulture cavalry when the second and third row of vultures released a large wave of arrows. With the close-range attacks in front and the long-range attacks in the back, with this kind of long-range attacks and close-range attacks, the griffin knights would not be able to hold on for long even with the griffin's wind-attributed barrier. They immediately fell into a disadvantageous position and tried to break through several times without success. It really wasn't good. The southern summer country was a small country in the end, so they lacked experience in aerial battles. Even the elite griffin knights did not have much experience in aerial battles. When they fought against a trained aerial force, even if they had an advantage in individual strength, they would still be suppressed. The warhound's black tide of attacks became even fiercer. Whether it was the imperial city defenders or the warhounds, their casualties kept rising. Because the vulture cavalry had dropped a group of airborne soldiers into the southern summer country, the city walls were in chaos. There were quite a few warhound soldiers that did not fear death climbing up the walls. Throw the bombs. Quickly. The southern summer defenders had no way to deal with the warhound's soldiers climbing up, so they could only throw the last batch of source energy bombs down from the city walls. Instantly the earth shook as large amounts of explosions appeared on the city walls. Each source energy bomb released a terrifying light and heat, causing the imperial city to tremble under this terrifying power. Each explosion occurred where the warhound soldiers were gathered, instantly tearing apart over 100 warhound soldiers. The warhound's army was shocked by the terrifying might of the source energy bombs. The might of these weapons was just too terrifying. Don't care about them, continue killing. The southern summer country's city walls are about to be broken. The warhound's army was incomparably fierce. With these powerful source energy bombs, although they could barely suppress the warhound's attack, the warhounds came back after a while, attacking the city walls like ants. In terms of defense, the southern summer imperial city could not compare to the frontline fortress. Because the imperial city was too big and there were too many people, there were 9 city gates. The warhound's army attacked 7 of the city gates at the same time. Miracle Commerce's source energy bombs were very limited and they were almost all used up, so they could not stop the warhound soldiers from attacking the city. The southern summer country's proud griffin knights were currently being suppressed by the vulture knights, so they had no way to reinforce the defense. Instead, more and more warhound soldiers were creating chaos in Imperial City, wantonly setting fires and attacking, making the situation even more chaotic. Finally, a warhound's army successfully climbed up the city walls, and the following troops continued to pour in like a tide. Each one of them was fighting with no fear of death, making the Southern Summer Army much weaker in comparison. Meng Qingwu saw many parts of the city walls being invaded by the warhound's army and knew that Imperial City could not be defended for much longer. She immediately said to the Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler, "It's about time." The two rulers nodded to each other. The Burning Sun ruler raised a flag high up and a horn sounded in Imperial City. The Fong King knit his brows when he saw this. Did the Southern Summer Country still have a move they hadn't used? At this time, the Griffin Knights surrounded by the Vulture Knights suddenly began to counterattack. The 2,000 Griffin Knights charged forward with a lance in one hand and a source energy submachine gun in the other. "This weapon is..." Wang Tianlong was shocked when he saw the weapon the Griffin Knights were using. Wang Tianlong was not unfamiliar with this thing. He had seen it in Chu Tian's hands before. But Wang Tianlong always thought that it was a special treasure. Who would have thought that the Griffin Knights would all have one? Wang Tianlong had seen the might of this weapon before. If everyone had one, how terrifying would that be? The Griffin Knight commander loudly shouted, "Kill them all." The warhounds did not even have time to react before the source energy submachine gun spat out a dazzling white flame. Several thousand energy bullets flew out at a speed faster than arrows. The firing speed was too fast and the attack was too sudden. How could the Vulture Knights resist at such a close distance? Instantly, several hundred vultures fell from the sky, creating a gap in the Vulture Knights' encirclement. The Griffin Knights used a storm of bullets to create a gap in the Vulture Knights' formation, causing heavy casualties to the vultures. Then they charged down the city walls and the muzzles of their submachine guns swept across the densely packed warhounds' soldiers on the city walls. The sky was filled with densely packed light bullets. This was the effect of 2,000 source energy submachine guns firing at the same time. Not only were the source energy bullets small, they were also faster than arrows. Shooting at such a close distance, the warhound soldiers did not have time to dodge at all. A large number of them were instantly killed, greatly relieving the pressure on the city walls. This was the Nangong family's over 10,000 wild flame heavy armor army. They held pistols in their left hands and large swords in their right hands as they fought the warhound soldiers that dropped in from the sky. The result did not have any suspense as the warhound soldiers were defeated in a single battle. How could they block this terrifying army? The Nangong family's wild flame heavy armor soldiers already had strong close combat abilities, and now with the assistance of the pistols, they could easily pierce through an awakened soul cultivator's protective spirit energy. Although these warhound soldiers were elites, how many of them were awakened soul cultivators? This was a completely one-sided situation. They had regained their air superiority, relieved the pressure on the city walls, and cleared out the enemies in the city. The Southern Summer Imperial City was becoming smoother and smoother, so the warhounds would not be able to break through Imperial City. These humans really do have some methods. The Fong King's eyes seemed like they were spitting fire, but he was not flustered and exasperated. Rather, he calmly said, "How are the preparations on that side?" Wang Tianlong confidently said, "Please be assured, Fong King. Everything has been prepared and these fellows won't be happy for long." Chapter 680. Although these elves looked like children, in fact, according to human age, their average age could reach 40 to 50 years old. Although the mental development of the elves was relatively slow, and their cultivation speed and efficiency were not comparable to that of humans, after such a long time, no matter how slow their growth was, they were still much stronger than they looked. The weakest of these elves was in the awakened soul realm, with 7-8 being in the late awakened soul realm. Other than little Princess Vivian, there was also one in the true spirit realm. Just a group of children already had this kind of terrifying strength. It could be imagined just how strong the elves were. However, no matter how strong they were still children, so they were very curious about this strange thing they had never seen before. The narration slowly sounded out. Although the human language and elven language were two completely different languages, the human language was not hard to learn. Humans were one of the most important races on the continent, So the human language was something every elf had to learn since they were young, so it wasn't a problem for them to understand it. This illusory image stone was not a real movie, so the scenes were exaggerated. So, when the people fought, the scenes were often heaven-shattering and the elves' eyes were glued to it. Too great. Satisfying, it was very satisfying. This was simply a feast for the eyes and imagination. The entire treehouse was silent. Each little elf found that other than the intense fighting scenes, the most attractive part was the story itself. The elves were an intelligent life form that was 10 times more sensitive than humans. Therefore, when they watched the movie, they were 10 times more immersed than humans. The main character met the princess. That faintly discernible love that people couldn't grasp made the elves' hearts itch. That handsome and brave male lead Chu Tian and that beautiful and kind princess Meng Ying, both of them had a pure heart and a noble character, making the elves instantly fall in love with them. "I'm so angry." An 11 or 12-year-old elf girl angrily said, "Why is this Chu Tian so cowardly? If he likes her, then he should pursue her." "That's right. Can't he see that Princess Meng Ying also likes him? That blockhead. Idiot. What do you know?" The little princess waved her hand and said in an old-fashioned manner, "The human kingdoms care a lot about status. This warrior named Chu Tian is only a wandering swordsman and that Meng Ying is a noble princess. Do you think that in the human kingdoms, normal people can casually walk together with princesses?" The elves all fell into deep thought. What? Humans are just so annoying. Why do they care so much about these superficial things? The elves had a hard time understanding the human worldview. These normal elves playing around with the little princess didn't feel like there was anything wrong with it. In the elven race, even if the elven king ate with the lowest level elves, no one would feel that there was anything wrong with it. The little princess is right. Another elf began to show off her knowledge. Think about it, if an ogre wanted to win over our little princess, do you think the great elder would agree? "Pay!" Little Princess Vivian's face turned red with anger. Chu Tian is such a handsome, righteous, and brave person, how could he compare to an ogre? This is simply shameful. Aren't they the same in the eyes of humans? Unreasonable humans. When the elves were arguing, the development of the plot increased suspense. The kingdom's generals secretly reported this matter and distorted the truth. The king was immediately enraged and prepared to put the princess under house arrest and execute the human warriors. Damn. The human king was too evil. Which part of Chu Tian wasn't worthy of the princess? Why did he stop her? The elves were filled with righteous indignation and were filled with anger. They broke out in cold sweat for the fate of the two of them. Who would have thought that at this time, the princess would escape in the middle of the night when she received the news? A series of thrilling and exciting escape scenes made people break out in cold sweat. This was too exciting. There was no doubt that the male and female protagonists were intelligent. In the end, when the two of them were about to meet in the village, an unexpected event occurred. The Scarlet Blood religion appeared and captured the kind princess. The remnants of the Scarlet Blood religion were wildly slaughtering innocent humans, using evil techniques to collect blood essence. When they saw this incomparably tragic murder, each elf's face turned red with anger and their bodies trembled with anger. It was as if those people who died were real, living people. How could there be such evil people in this world? What should they do? What would happen to the male and female protagonists? The plot of the story was only half done, but the pace continued to increase. The story became more and more exciting, with all kinds of suspense and foreshadowing, finally exploding in the decisive battle. No! Don't die! When they saw the main character Chu Tian sink into the bottomless swamp to save the princess, each elf shed tears of grief. Could it be that after putting in so much effort, it still ended in a tragedy? Just when the elves were feeling very sad about this, a miraculous turn of events happened. The final ending of the story was that everyone thought that the warrior and the princess were dead, while the warrior and the princess hid their identities and lived in seclusion in a place where no one would disturb them, living a quiet and peaceful life. Good, good, good. The elves' hands almost broke from clapping. The final ending was just to their liking. The little princess also smiled through her tears. This was more like it. Good people should be rewarded. This gift was just too great. She loved this story to death. Is there really a person named Chu Tian in the human world? If he really exists, I must see him. That's right, that's right. He is my idol right now. The elves began to chatter. If there really was a person named Chu Tian in the human world, they had to see him no matter what. Princess Vivian, tomorrow is my 100-year-old birthday. An elf that didn't look much older than the little princess looked at the video player. I really like this. Can you give it to me? Another elf called out, doesn't the princess want my mount? How about I exchange it for this video player? Prince. Not exchanging. Not exchanging. Not exchanging. The little princess angrily opened her eyes and reached out her arms to block the video player. It was like her sacred sovereignty was being invaded. This video player is this princess' most precious gift. Without my permission, if anyone dares to touch it, I will beat them until their head is full of bruises. Stingy. I'm stingy, I'm stingy. Let's ignore her and ask Elder Aubersen for it. The elves looked at the video player with faces filled with longing and envy. If someone was willing to take out another one, they were willing to take out all their treasures to exchange. But since Elder Aubersen could bring back one, why couldn't he bring back a second or third? The little princess also thought that since there was a story, why couldn't there be a second or third? Aubersen's treehouse was quickly invaded by these children. When he saw the little elves charging at him, Aubersen was instantly scared out of his wits. How could they do this? Aubersen quickly explained that there was only one of these things. There was nothing else, there really was nothing else. Aubersen's persuasion was useless, and he could only promise in the end, this human country is not far from us. When I have time in the future, I will definitely bring back gifts for you all. The elves were not satisfied with this, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Elder Aubersen couldn't just make something out of nothing. Little Princess Vivian was the only one in the entire elven tribe that had a video player. This news quickly spread and the little elves returned home to tell their elders. There were even some adult elves that came to ask little Princess Vivian to borrow the video player. Vivian was very angry. This thing was her precious treasure. How could she casually lend it out? The more people couldn't see it, the more curious they became. The Oldman tribe is willing to trade a month's worth of moonlight well water for little Princess Vivian's video player. The Greenleaf tribe is willing to trade a branch of the Tree of Life for little Princess Vivian's video player. Little Princess Vivian used to be the symbol of mischief and trouble. Almost no one liked to provoke her. In the past few days, little Princess Vivian had become completely popular. The treasure in her hands was not only coveted by her own people, but even some of the surrounding tribes had come to negotiate with her. I won't trade. If I say I won't trade, then I won't trade. Even if you take out a dragon egg, this princess won't trade. Princess Vivian was flustered and exasperated as she made a move. She actually chased away a group of people that came to negotiate and finally locked herself in a treehouse. The elven tribe was instantly thrown into chaos. This was because the people that were chased away by Princess Vivian had gone back to complain. These tribes immediately sent out a message saying that the elves were provoking their allies and breaking the alliance. If they didn't give a reasonable explanation, they would complain to the Elven Council. How would they compensate them? Of course they would take out the video player. Good things should be shared with the forest. This matter alarmed the Great Elder, and in the end, Vivian had no choice but to hand over her beloved video disc player under pressure. Because of this matter, she cried all night, as if her most beloved toy had been snatched away by someone else. Night gradually fell. Little Princess Vivian had a bitter look on her face as she stayed in the treehouse. In just a few short days, she felt the deep malice of this world. Now that the video player had been borrowed, she didn't know when those people would return it. Elder Aubersen was not willing to reveal the origin of the video player because the elves were a peaceful race with principles. Elder Aubersen was afraid that once the origin was revealed, that place would no longer be peaceful. But Aubersen had miscalculated. Did he think that no one would know if he didn't say it? Little Princess Vivian had a magnetic sound device in her hands as well as several dozen discs bought from the Southern Summer Country humans. These discs were bought by Elder Aubersen at a high price in the southern summer country, and he did not even know what was recorded on them. Vivian had learned her lesson. She hid these things and enjoyed them secretly every night. There were stories, there was music, there was teaching, and there were all kinds of lectures. In short, the content was very rich. What made little Princess Vivian the most pleasantly surprised was that she learned that these things came from a small human kingdom in the north. What made little Princess Vivian even more excited was that the Chu Tian in the movies really existed. These cameras, the magnetic sound device, the video player, and everything else, they were all invented by him. Little Princess Vivian's feelings towards Chu Tian went from admiration and liking to worship. Chapter 681. The Warhound soldiers dropped by the Vulture Knights were being pushed back by the Nangong family's Wild Flame Army. The Wild Flame Army was the strongest infantry army in the southern summer country. Each one was covered in incomparably thick armor. Even an early-stage awakened soul cultivator would find it hard to break through their defenses. Moreover, the Wild Flame Army was trained with the Nangong family's secret technique, so they were all tall and strong, almost not feeling any pain. Although they were in the peak 9th body refinement layer, their individual strength was close to an awakened soul cultivator. An entire 10,000 Wild Flame warriors held giant broadswords in their right hands and source energy pistols in their left. The Warhound soldiers tried to break through the encirclement several times, but they were all forced back together. Almost at the same time, the Griffin Knights supported the walls, instantly eliminating the pressure on the Southern Summer Army, giving the Southern Summer Army enough time to regain their footing. Although Imperial City was in a mess because of the flames of battle, the most dangerous wave of attacks had already been stopped. The Griffin Knights once again began fighting with the Vulture Knights. Each Griffin Knight had at least one energy magazine left. In front of the high firing speed and firepower of the source energy submachine guns, the Vulture Knights could not form a proper battle formation. After several rounds of attacks from the Griffin Knights, the Vulture Knights had suffered 3-4 times the casualties of the Griffin Knights. Ha 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 ha. The Burning Sun ruler punched a Warhound's general's body. His body was covered in blood and his red hair danced in the wind. He stared at the retreating Warhound soldiers and gave a wild laugh. The Warhounds only amount to this much, daring to attack my southern summer country. I'll make sure you never return. The refined ruler had killed several enemy high-level generals. At this moment, the most dangerous wave of attacks from the Warhounds had been stopped. The Warhounds' Vulture Knights had suffered heavy casualties and the elites that had landed in the city had been chased by the Wild Flame Army, with most of them dying. The Warhounds had surrounded the city and suffered heavy casualties. If they chose to retreat now, it would not be easy to attack the city again. On one hand, after this battle, the southern summer country's confidence had increased. On the other hand, the calm martial ruler was about to return and the southern summer cavalry did not have much time left for the Warhounds. Miracle Commerce's source energy weapons had played a crucial role. It was because of the powerful source energy weapons that the Griffin Knights could escape from their disadvantage, allowing the Wild Flame Army to easily defeat the Warhounds' elites. It was also because of the deterrence of the source energy weapons that the Warhounds' main experts, including the Fong King, did not dare make any rash moves, greatly reducing the pressure on their defenses. The refined ruler took out the dark gold pen from the chest of a Warhounds general. When his eyes swept over the Warhounds' army below the city, he suddenly noticed a different situation. Where did their main cavalry go? With these words, the Burning Sun ruler was also alerted. The most important part of the Warhounds' army was the demonic wolf cavalry. This was an army with a battle strength that made people's blood run cold. Only no matter how intense the battle was, the Fong King was able to remain calm and did not use this army to attack the city. Now that he looked over, he was shocked to find that the nightmarish Black Army had already disappeared. The southern summer people were cheering for their victory. The Burning Sun ruler looked at the Fong King. Although they were very far away, the Fong King's eyes did not contain any anger or defeat. Rather, there was a deep sense of cunning, as if he was waiting for something. This is bad. Could it be that he still had a backup plan? When the Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler felt this was bad, there was a series of sounds of fighting that came from the center of Imperial City. There were also the faint roars of angry wolves mixed in. The Warhounds elites that had been suppressed by the Wild Flame army suddenly began to fight back like they were on steroids. Before the Wild Flame army could even react, from the roofs and corners of the surroundings, there were even people that jumped over the walls. Like a flood, thousands of Black Wolf cavalry suddenly appeared. This is bad. It was too sudden and the Wild Flame army did not have time to counterattack. Countless Demon Wolf cavalry swarmed in, instantly cutting into the Wild Flame army's formation. Moreover, their numbers kept increasing, surpassing the Wild Flame army in an instant. It was like a group of wild dogs fighting for a delicious piece of meat, instantly throwing the Wild Flame army into chaos. The Warhounds' cavalry had appeared in Imperial City. Everyone turned pale with fright. What was going on? Why would the Warhounds' cavalry appear in the city? A person quickly ran over to report, "The enemy is coming from the Nangong family's direction." This is impossible. The Burning Sun ruler could not help but believe this. Large groups of incomparably fierce black figures were continuously charging out. The agile Demon Wolf cavalry jumped from rooftop to rooftop, constantly killing the innocent civilians and soldiers on the streets. 5,000. The ruler was incomparably indignant. Imperial City was about to be defended, but who would have thought that there would be this kind of change? You are the shame of the southern summer country. Nangong Ling did not care. No matter what you say, the Dongfang family's southern summer country cannot be protected. The Nangong and Shangguan families do not need to be buried with him. The true Spirit Realm Warhounds chief on the side was already impatient. Too much nonsense. Attack. The Demon Wolf cavalry wildly charged at the city walls. The southern summer country's defenses were all external, so now that the enemy was attacking from within, how could they defend? The Fong King could feel the change in the city from outside the city. He gave a cold smile and raised the purple gold thunder god's drum in his hand. The time has come, attack the city with me. The Fong King personally made a move. Other than the Fong King, the Warhounds had at least 4 other true Spirit Realm experts. The number of troops, scale, and battle strength far surpassed the southern summer countries. Now that they were attacking Imperial City from the inside, how would the southern summer country defend it? 2 rulers of the southern summer country, let me face you. The Fong King stomped on the ground and jumped several dozen meters off the city walls. His feet used the depression in the city walls to jump several dozen meters off the ground, and he actually landed on top of the city walls. The city walls were already burning and the soldiers were resisting the enemies from all directions. How could they concentrate their firepower on the Fong King? The Fong King casually raised the purple gold thunder god's drum in his hand, and several southern summer soldiers surrounding him were turned to ashes by the lightning. The Burning Sun ruler said to Meng Qingwu beside him, "You guys retreat first, retreat to the royal palace." Chen Bingyu brought Meng Qingwu away from the battlefield. This battle was not something they could interfere with. The Fong King did not chase, and he disdained chasing because in the entire Imperial City, there were only these 2 in front of him that were worthy of being his opponent. The Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler did not say a word as they attacked the Fong King at the same time. The entire city walls continued to explode. 3 true Spirit Realm experts fiercely clashed, and the destructive power of this level of battle was very shocking. Large pieces of the city walls collapsed and the scene became a chaotic mess. At this time, 3 figures flew out at the same time and landed on the ruins. Both sides had only exchanged a few moves, but the Refined ruler and the Burning Sun ruler were both injured, while the Fong King didn't seem to have any injuries at all. He still had a relaxed appearance, and just from this, it could be seen how big the difference in strength was. The Fong King said with a laugh of ridicule, "The Southern Summer 3 rulers only have this much strength?" At this time, they were surrounded by the Warhounds' army on all sides. The Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler looked at each other. "Retreat!" The 2 of them retreated, and several Warhounds' plains chiefs chased after them, but they were stopped by the Fong King. The Fong King calmly said, "There is no need to worry about 2 true Spirit Realm cultivators. Our mission is to take down the Southern Summer Imperial City. Even if the Tsang State Cavalry arrives, they won't be able to turn the situation around. No matter what tricks the other side plays, victory will still belong to us. Chapter 682. At dusk, the Emerald Forest was covered in a peaceful twilight. The elves had a long lifespan, and the pace of their lives was slow and leisurely. Almost no one was diligent in training. Everyone liked to play with flowers and plants, study carving, music, or other arts. At this time, an elderly elf passed by the princess treehouse with 2 books in his hands. He asked 2 elven patrolling guards, "Why didn't I see little Princess Vivian? She's usually very active." "I saw her a few minutes ago. She went back to the treehouse. This girl's toy was borrowed by someone. She's probably angry now. But according to her usual habits, she'll be fine in 2 days. Don't go and touch her now or you'll be in trouble." "We know." The elderly elf looked up at the treehouse, shook his head, and left. Actually, the entire tribe did not know that Vivian had already quietly slipped away. She took advantage of when no one was paying attention and used her innate spatial energy to secretly leave the tribe. In a short period of time, she passed through the forest and trekked through several dangerous areas to the north, finally arriving at the border of the Southern Summer Country's southern state region. Is this the human country in front of us? The sky was already dark. Vivian stood on her tiptoes on a mountain peak and looked into the distance. She could vaguely see the lights of the Southern Summer Country's southern border posts. The little princess couldn't help feeling nervous. She had learned some information about the humans from the tribe's elders. Humans were a very complex life form. Whether it was their appearance or their character, they were not evenly distributed. There were beautiful women like Princess Meng Yingying in the movies, there were ugly monsters like the Scarlet Moon religion leader, there were selfless warriors like Chu Tian in the movies, and there were also treacherous and vicious bad people. In short, good, evil, ugly, and beautiful had never been reflected so vividly in a race. This was something that could not be seen in other races, so humans were the most complex race. It was because of this that their movies were so popular. Although there were many good people in the human race, the elves all believed that humans were greedy and treacherous, so the elves did not have a good impression of humans. This was also the reason why the elves were so determined to break off relations with humans and not interact with them. Little Princess Vivian had heard and seen for a long time, so she was naturally a bit nervous and afraid of humans. It was said that there were some evil and daring human bandits that would attack the elven tribes and kidnap the beautiful elven girls, just to satisfy the human nobles' desires. Just thinking about it was terrifying. If it wasn't for Chu Tian being here, Vivian would not have come into contact with humans at all. How could the little princess know that the Southern Summer Country was a weak little kingdom? Even if the peak experts, the 3 rulers of the Southern Summer Country, worked together, they still wouldn't have the qualifications to exchange blows with her. With her innate spatial energy that was rarely seen on the continent, how many people on the continent could catch her? The little princess did not dare move forward. She found a rock covered in moss on the cliff and sat down. She took out the magnetic sound machine from her chest and carefully adjusted it. She muttered to herself, "I don't know if I can receive a signal here. No matter, I'll give it a try." Zzz. Zzz. The magnetic sound machine continued to release a chaotic noise. The little princess slightly knit her brows. Was the distance still too far? While the little princess was a bit depressed, the magnetic sound machine suddenly responded. She heard a burst of pleasant music that came from the magnetic sound machine. "Ayaya, I can really hear it." The little princess excitedly jumped up. She immediately switched channels and found that there were quite a few channels that she could receive. Chu Tian really is the #1 genius on the continent, actually inventing this kind of great thing. This is too great. Vivian was so excited that she wanted to shout out loud. The little princess began to look for the content she liked on Miracle Broadcasting. The signal source of Miracle Broadcasting was clearly from Central State, so the station was broadcasting a lot of Central State news and information. Vivian had never been to the human world before, so even the most boring information was a very new experience for her. So the humans made a large theater that could hold several hundred to over 1,000 people. It would be great if our tribe had this kind of theater. Those fellows wouldn't have stolen my video disc player. What? Powerful. Powerful. Did Chu Tian invent something called a communication device? Even if they are separated by tens of thousands of miles, he really is worthy of being the person this princess admires. If the Elven tribe had this kind of thing, the Elven Council wouldn't need to be this troublesome in the future. Little Princess Vivian was like a curious explorer. She sat alone on the pitch-black peak, searching in a daze. The information sent from the human world was like a whole new world for the little princess who had never left the forest before. It completely changed little Princess Vivian's view of the world. She had never seen the world as clearly as she did today. The sky gradually brightened. She had to quickly return. Little Princess Vivian carefully placed the magnetic recording machine in her pocket and jumped off the cliff, instantly disappearing into the air. Ever since she experienced this different night, Vivian could not stop. Every night, she would spend a lot of effort to secretly go to the southern summer country's border and listen to the news from the southern summer country. The elves were very open-minded, but they forbade their clansmen from coming into contact with the outside world, especially with humans. If Vivian was discovered, the consequences would not be a joke. This violated the highest ban of the elves, and it would even be reported to the Elven Council. But Vivian did not care about this. She could not resist the temptation of that mysterious world. Princess Vivian came here that night. When she was about to choose the content she liked to listen to, there was a program about Miracle Commerce's founder, Chu Tian's growth. There were large amounts of views and evaluations from the Heavens Alliance members. This Heavens Alliance was an organization formed by Chu Tian's admirers in the southern summer country, so naturally it attracted the little princess' interest. Chu Tian's experiences are so legendary. The little princess knew that Chu Tian was an abandoned child of the central state city Chu family. His parents had been killed and he had been reduced to a slave. He had coincidentally met Meng Yingying and finally managed to create such a large business. Life is always more legendary than stories. The little princess listened with great interest. Especially the series of things that Chu Tian did afterwards, it made the little princess admire him even more. The little princess could be said to be the most rebellious of the wood elves, so Chu Tian's unruly and unyielding nature suited the little princess' taste. Not to mention that he was this talented, powerful. He really was worthy of being the person who invented movies and the magnetic sound machine. After paying attention for several days, the little princess understood Chu Tian more and more and understood Miracle Commerce more and more. She knew who the high-level members of Miracle Commerce were and what they had done. It was as if she was familiar with them. She had already deeply understood Miracle Commerce's charm. This kind of happy and nervous time passed very quickly. The sun was about to rise again. The little princess reluctantly put away the magnetic sound machine and prepared to return to the tribe to come back tomorrow. At this time, a small advertisement from Miracle Commerce caught the little princess' attention. Are you troubled by your mediocre career? Are you troubled by the lack of passion in your life? Are you confused by the monotonous repetition of your days? Miracle Commerce's mercenary group, the Chu sect, is recruiting talents. No matter how low your background is, no matter how high your status is, no matter how strong your cultivation base is, no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, as long as you have a skill, you will have the chance to become a member of Miracle Commerce. Let us witness a great miracle together and create a great miracle empire together. At this moment, Vivian's heart began to beat faster. The elves had a very long lifespan, living for at least 500-600 years. If one's cultivation base was a bit higher, living for 1,000 years was not a problem. The elves had a long lifespan, so they could accumulate a large amount of knowledge. But Vivian did not understand, why would one of the most intelligent races on the continent like to live in seclusion? If the elves were like Chu Tian and used their knowledge and wisdom to benefit the world, wouldn't that be a better choice? If they could go to the continent and achieve great feats that people would envy, then their existence in this world would not be in vain. Vivian gave a soft sigh. Unfortunately, the rules of the elves were very strict. The elders wouldn't allow elves to participate in worldly pursuits and battles. Vivian didn't expect to convince those old fogies. If the elders found out about this, she would be put under house arrest for 8 to 10 years. Vivian turned off the magnetic recording machine and returned to the tribe with a worried expression. For the first time, she began to doubt the iron law of the elves. The next day, when Vivian was prepared to listen to the program, the content of the radio station had completely changed. It was almost completely reporting the situation in the north, saying that the southern summer countries north had been invaded by spirit beasts and even the kingdom's capital had been defeated. Cruel spirit beasts. This was truly hateful. There were many spirit beasts living in the chaotic forest, and none of these spirit beasts were good things. They were synonymous with bandits. She never thought that even the southern summer country would be bullied by the spirit beasts. The little princess was worried that Chu Tian would be in danger in the southern summer country. In the next few days, the little princess had been paying attention to the situation through the radio. On this night, the Miracle Broadcasting Station released a large amount of urgent purchasing information. Miracle Commerce's chairman Chu Tian has been heavily injured fighting the spirit beasts on the front lines. He needs a level 2 immortal herb that can restore his innate vitality. What? Chu Tian was heavily injured? Vivian was instantly filled with worry. What should she do? She returned to the treehouse to think about it for the entire night. Chu Tian's current situation was very difficult and he needed help. This favor she, Princess Vivian, could help him. If she brought the medicine to him, he would be very grateful and Princess Vivian could use this chance to get to know Chu Tian. Only if she did this, the risk was very, very large. She couldn't care about that right now. Little Princess Vivian was not a dutiful elf. After she made up her mind, she immediately began to move. Chapter 683. Chu Tian had been in a chaotic state for the past few days. He felt like he was floating in an empty space and there was a mysterious and profound sound lingering in his ears, sometimes near and sometimes far, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Chu Tian felt like his body was immersed in chaos and he was sinking into a bottomless abyss. However, at that moment, a towering and majestic demon god appeared in the endless darkness. This demon god had 9 eyes, and each eye had a different color. Each color represented a profound power in the world, and each eye seemed to contain the great Tao of heaven and earth. White was space, silver was time, green was life, black was death, purple was soul, and gold was divine sense. The 9 eyes all represented an extraordinary power. The 9-eyed demon god was not just elemental energy, it was a supreme being that had 9 kinds of power combined into one. Chu Tian was very familiar with the 9-eyed demon god's power because he was Chu Tian and Chu Tian was him. It was just a reincarnation. However, what surprised Chu Tian was that the 9-eyed demon god gave him a very unfamiliar feeling at this moment. Because there was another eye on the 9-eyed demon god's body. This eye was closed the entire time, but it was filled with an incredible power. This eye is... Chu Tian felt like the 10th eye was about to open and an irresistible power covered him, pulling Chu Tian out of the abyss of his consciousness. Was this just a dream? Chu Tian was covered in sweat when he woke up. The 10th eye was the power sealed by the nameless ancient god. The nameless ancient god had warned Chu Tian before not to open this eye easily, otherwise it would bring unimaginable consequences. What kind of power did this eye represent? Chu Tian felt a strong headache. Although he had rested for several days and his body hadn't recovered, his spiritual energy had returned to normal. At least he could get out of bed and walk. Ding, why is it so noisy outside? Chu Tian, you're finally awake. Meng Yingying had a bitter expression as she looked out the window. When she heard Chu Tian's voice, she turned around in pleasant surprise, but then she said in a worried and fearful voice, "The Southern Summer Army has been defeated again and the war hounds have killed their way into Imperial City. All the soldiers and civilians have surrendered and are fighting to the death, causing the entire Imperial City to fall into chaos." What? They've been defeated again. Chu Tian immediately sat up. What are the Southern Summer Army doing? The front lines fell because of a sneak attack, so they weren't prepared, but how did Imperial City fall? Meng Yingying gave a sigh. I don't know. Elder sister won't let me go out, but I heard elder sister Nangong say that it was the departing flame marquis who betrayed us and led the Warhound's army into the city through a secret passage. They worked together to break the city. Another traitor? Chu Tian felt a headache. If even Imperial City fell, wouldn't the southern summer country be finished? Like this, what would happen to the miracle commerce that Chu Tian had spent half a year to build? Where are we? Chu Tian found that this place was not Miracle Commerce's headquarters. The Royal Palace. For safety, Elder Sister ordered her subordinates to destroy the Yun sect research facility in Imperial City and burned the headquarters. Then she brought the other Miracle Commerce members to the Royal Palace. The Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler still have over 100,000 soldiers who are defending the Royal Palace, but there are too many enemies. I think we can't defend Imperial City anymore. We need to discuss a retreat plan. Quickly come with me. Before he finished, the door was pushed open and Meng Qingwu quickly walked in. When she saw Chu Tian sitting up, she revealed a surprised expression. Chu Tian, you woke up at the right time. Chu Tian did not know what had happened recently. You just said retreat? What do you mean? There's no time to explain now. Every minute is more dangerous. Meng Qingwu quickly said to Meng Yingying, quickly, let's go to the main hall. The main hall of the royal palace was not as peaceful as it normally was. At this moment, there were soldiers wearing armor and looking out from the main hall. Half of Imperial City was burning. The thick black smoke had already covered the sky. Chu Tian saw several familiar faces, like the Burning Sun ruler, the Refined ruler, Gu Qianqiu, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, the Four Direction Marquis, and others. Everyone was covered in blood from the fierce battle and were covered in wounds. Everyone revealed a complex expression when they saw Chu Tian. Chu Tian weakly said, the general situation, I've already heard about it. Now that Imperial City has fallen, there are only a few hundred to 20,000 soldiers left to defend the royal palace. I'm afraid we won't be able to stop the warhounds for long, so it's too late to do anything now. Have you thought about how to retreat? The Burning Sun ruler beat his chest in regret. The fall of Imperial City is all this ruler's fault. How could the Nangong family have such an unfilial son? The situation is already over. It's too late to regret. The Refined ruler had a defeated look on his face at this moment. The southern summer country's north can't be defended. The Imperial region, Song State, and the departing Flame Marquis Furnace State will be lost, but the southern summer country has 6 states to the south, with each state having over 100,000 soldiers. There are also the tens of thousands of miles of mountains and the endless 4 states lake as a barrier. Perhaps they can stop the warhounds from swallowing the southern summer country. What we need to do now is to try our best to preserve the southern summer country's strength and defend the 6 southern states. The current situation was truly hopeless. The Fang King had experts like clouds in his hands and his army had an overwhelming advantage. Imperial City had fallen into chaos and was heavily damaged. Now that it had developed to this point, not to mention it was impossible to turn defeat into victory, so what if they created a miracle and drove away the warhounds' army? The front lines had collapsed and Imperial City had been destroyed. Was there any meaning in the Imperial region like this? At this moment, it was better to preserve their strength and move to the south, using their geographical advantage to block the warhounds' invasion. The problem was how to move. The sounds of fighting outside were becoming more and more intense. The Burning Sun ruler said, the Dongfang family has a secret passage in the royal palace. The eldest prince Dongfang Haoren has the authority to open it and knows the method to open it. Now I ask the great scholar, the country guarding ruler, and the dukes to bring the remaining 1,000 royal knights and 20,000 elites of the 3 clans to leave Imperial City through the passage and leave the Imperial region. Of the 6 southern states, Central State has the best position and can become the new center of the southern summer country, preserving the last bloodline of the southern summer country's clans. Dongfang Haoren was also covered in blood, but he immediately walked out. Understood. If this many people leave, will the warhounds not care? The Burning Sun ruler revealed a determined expression. Leave in peace. The refined ruler and I will lead the last of Imperial City's elites and fight the war hounds to the last moment. With us stalling for time here, they won't be able to chase after you." The meaning behind these words was that the Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler were prepared to fight to the end. Why must the two rulers defend a broken city to the death? Gu Qianqiu immediately said, "Where there's life, there's hope." The Burning Sun ruler decisively said, "The fall of Imperial City is this ruler's greatest crime. I have let down the Nangong family's Lai ancestor and the countless Southern Summer heroes, so I can only fight to atone for my crimes. This ruler has already decided to lead the Nangong family's direct descendants to defend, and the Nangong family's branch families and youths under 20 will all be given to Nangong Yun to manage. From today on, Nangong Yun will be a new member of the Nangong family. I hope you will treat the Nangong family's descendants well and let the phoenix rise from the ashes." Because of the departing Flame Marquis betrayal, the Burning Sun ruler was filled with guilt, so he decided to stay behind to buy time for everyone. This was understandable, but why did the refined ruler stay behind? The Southern Summer Country did not have many true spirit realm experts. The Southern Summer Country's intelligence network is managed by the Shangguan family. The situation on the Warhound's plains changed and the Warhound's army suddenly attacked, but this ruler did not notice it at all, causing the Southern Summer Country to fall into disaster. The root of the problem lies with the Shangguan family. The refined ruler said with a serious expression, "This ruler has led the Shangguan family for several decades, but I have only been obsessed with power and profit. I have forgotten the teachings of my ancestors and abandoned my duty. This ruler is incompetent. The Shangguan family's foundation is in Imperial City, so how could they be fine with their nest being destroyed? The Shangguan family is guilty, so we will fight to the last moment." These two people made Chu Tian suddenly understand something. The calm martial ruler had said that the Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler were different from the other families he had met. Chu Tian did not understand at that time, but now he knew what he was referring to. From these two noble monarchs, Chu Tian saw something that normal families did not have: honor and dignity. As rulers of the Southern Summer Country, even if they knew they would die, they would still fight to the last moment. "Chu Tian." A low and deep voice came into his ears. The Western Marquis was holding a pen dripping with blood as he looked at him. "To be honest, I still hate you to the bone, but it's a pity that I won't have a chance to take revenge. If you are a Southern Summer man, then take up your responsibilities. Otherwise, even if I turn into an evil spirit in the underworld, I will not let you off." The sound of the outer walls of the royal palace collapsing came from them. The Burning Sun ruler shouted at everyone, "Retreat, otherwise it will be too late." The overall situation is important. The refined ruler also said, "Let's go." Chu Tian cupped his hands at the two of them. Today's disaster is not only a humiliation for everyone, it is also a humiliation for me, Chu Tian. Today I, Chutan, swear that there will be a day when the Warhound's plains will be flattened." The Burning Sun ruler laughed. "Your words are enough. The Warhound's kingdom's destruction is just around the corner. My king has given you the title of country-guarding ruler in this crisis. It is clear that he has high hopes for you. Now that the Southern Summer Country is facing a crisis, I hope that the ruler can withstand the collapsing Southern Summer Country in this critical moment." The refined ruler walked in front of Chu Tian. "The grudges between you and the Shangguan family will be written off by this ruler. Please treat the Shangguan family's descendants well. Let's go. It will be too late if we don't leave now." Gu Qianqiu said to Dongfang Haoren, "Quickly, open the secret passage." The youths and branches of the three great clans, the Griffin Knights, important scholars, and geniuses, there were a total of over 20,000 people. They first went to the royal palace's treasury and moved the things that could be moved. As for the things that couldn't be moved, they burned them. Finally, under Dongfang Haoren's lead, they began to leave through the royal palace's secret passage. Hong Dong Dong. The royal palace's doors slowly opened. The Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler looked at the Southern Summer Imperial City covered in flames and the dense Warhound's army. Their hearts were filled with emotions. They never would have thought that the bustling city from a few days ago would have this kind of earth-shattering change in just a few short nights. The southern summer country had rested for several decades, but it had been completely burned down by a single fire. The southern summer king was dead, the frontline marshal Dongfang Haoren was dead, and now it was the burning sun ruler and the refined ruler. Old man Nangong, we are truly not willing to end things like this. That's right, we are not willing. But we are old, so we'll leave the future to the young. At least we can leave in a beautiful way, our lives won't be in vain. Let's go! The two true spirit experts flew into the air at the same time, leading the experts of the three great clans and the last army to attack the Warhounds' army one last time. Fighting like a cornered beast, each person had the determination to die. The Warhounds' army suffered a fierce attack and the fierce battle lasted for half a day. In the early morning of the next day, the flames of battle gradually calmed down. The Fang king stood in the ruined royal palace, looking over the entire imperial city. From today onwards, this land would be completely conquered by him. Reporting to the Fang king, Dongfang Zhan, Shangguan Cengfeng, and Nangong Yan's corpses have already been buried in imperial city. Good. Wang Tianlong anxiously charged in and said, "We haven't found the corpses of Chu Tian's group." "What are you nervous about?" A Warhound's chief said in an uncaring voice. "In this kind of battle, it is normal for the corpses to be destroyed." "Impossible." Wang Tianlong had a premonition. He is most likely still alive. The Warhound soldiers did not care. So what if he was alive? The southern summer imperial city had been captured and the elites had all been killed. What else could they do to turn things around? The Fang king thought about it and said, "I'll give you the vulture group, search for their whereabouts." There was no time. The escape route that Meng Qinggu left was now in use. Chapter 684. Level 2 immortal herbs were very precious and there were several that met the requirements, but they were all in the hands of the elven elders. Vivian did not have the ability to trick them, so she could only steal them. This herb was raised by the tribe every day and consumed large amounts of resources every year. Actually, the elven elders did not have any use for it, which elven elder didn't have a true spirit realm cultivation. Rather than wasting a heavenly treasure, it was better to display a higher value. But which elder's herb was the best to steal? The elven elders were not good to provoke. She had the best relationship with the third elder Aubersen and there was an immortal herb in Aubersen's garden, so he deserved to be unlucky this time. In the dead of night, Vivian left the treehouse and quietly sneaked into Elder Aubersen's herb garden. This herb garden's defenses were very tight. The outermost layer was an illusion array that made it impossible for people to see the situation in the herb garden. There was a strong barrier inside the illusion array that even a true spirit expert would find hard to break. There were also several layers of alarms and defensive traps, as well as puppets patrolling the interior of the herb garden. Each herb was surrounded by a restriction. With this kind of perfect defense, the chances of it being stolen were almost zero. Even if someone tried to break into the herb garden, it was impossible for them not to set off an alarm. Once they set off, Aubersen would notice them. However, this was not a problem for little Princess Vivian. She was a heavenly gifted spatial energy user, so these outer defenses were nothing to the little princess. Pucci. Space was cut open like a piece of cloth. The little princess directly entered Elder Aubersen's herb garden. The entire herb garden was covered in a dense aura and there were only several dozen herbs, but each one was a very rare treasure. Vivian found an immortal herb that Aubersen had taken 80 years ago from an ancient ruin, the longevity grass. The longevity grass, its name seemed normal, but it was a genuine immortal herb. It said that this herb contained a strong innate vitality, enough to make up for any innate or acquired defects, increasing one's lifespan by 5%. The strong spirit energy contained within was enough for an awakened soul cultivator to easily break through their bottleneck. Very good. It's you. The little princess held a dagger in the air and deftly bypassed the restriction. Using a spatial layer, the entire herb was perfectly cut out, not even a single root was left. There were no signs of the immortal herb being moved at all. The herb was not pulled out, rather it was moved on a spatial layer. This was something only Vivian could do in the entire forest, therefore the restriction Aubersen left behind could not be touched. Elder Aubersen, don't blame me. Royal Father always said to plant good karma, so I'm using your herb to save Chu Tian, that is also planting a kind of good karma. The immortal herb was in her hands. Vivian left the tribe that night. This was because the little princess knew that the matter of stealing the herb could not be hidden for long. If Aubersen found out that the immortal herb he had cultivated for 80 years had been stolen, he would go crazy with anger. She had to quickly send the herb to Chu Tian's hands to avoid any future worries. The little princess passed through the forest and gathered the courage to enter the southern summer country for the first time. Finally she arrived at Central State, but the sky was already bright. Even if the little princess had an innate spatial energy, she was still tired after a night of traveling. Where does Chu Tian live? The southern summer country was in a state of war, so Central State did not have its usual bustling scene. Adding in the fact that it was only 4 in the morning, most people were closed up, so Central State City was very deserted. This was the little princess' first time in a human city. The stone houses the humans lived in were very strange, being densely packed together. There were not many trees in the city, so she was not used to it. Was it comfortable to live in these densely packed tall and large stone houses? There were no leaves, no grass, no gardens, no wells, no tree houses, no birds to accompany them. Several hundred people squeezed together, just thinking about it made her feel uncomfortable. Humans were truly strange. Where did Chu Tian live? Vivian closed her eyes and lit her mind's lamp. Her divine sense was very strong, instantly sweeping over half the city. What surprised the little princess was that these humans were so weak. They were unbelievably weak. How could there be such a weak country in this world? Vivian did not have any concept of the continent's power hierarchy, so she did not know that the small kingdoms were the lowest power. The southern summer humans were actually this weak. No wonder they were bullied by the spirit beast kingdom. After the little princess learned of the southern summer people's strength, her confidence increased. Because in Central State City, there was no one that could threaten her, so she could lock onto the strongest expert and head in his direction. With Chu Tian's high status in the southern summer country, finding the strongest expert was the right choice. In the southern summer king's temporary palace, Dong Fanggan was dealing with military affairs overnight. While Dong Fanggan was analyzing the situation. "Hey, hello." Suddenly, a weak and sweet girl's voice sounded in his ears. Dong Fanggan was shocked to find a petite figure standing 2-3 meters away from him. Dong Fanggan's face fell as he threw out the pen in his hand like a dart. No matter who it was, for a person to suddenly appear in the middle of the night, they would have the same reaction as Dong Fanggan. Dong Fanggan's cultivation was in the second true spirit realm, and he was the person with the highest cultivation in the southern summer country. The other party was standing 3 meters away from him, but he could not feel her aura at all. What did this mean? Either she was a very skilled assassin, or she was an expert with a very high cultivation, or perhaps it was both. Anyways, to be able to appear in front of Dong Fanggan without alerting the guards outside, she was definitely not an ordinary person. The little princess didn't care at all. She stretched out 2 fingers and caught the brush that Dong Fangqian had thrown. Dong Fanggan gave a low roar and his spirit energy instantly erupted. The Dongfang family's armament source spirit turned into a long spear that pierced at the little princess. "Why are you hitting me?" Vivian raised her hand and the space in front of her shattered. The long spear pierced through the shattered space and came out from behind Dong Fanggan. In the end, it landed on Dong Fanggan's body and Dong Fanggan was instantly injured by his own attack. "Just who are you?" "I'm here to deliver medicine to Chu Tian." Vivian held a wooden box in her hand and said in an unfamiliar human language, "Do you know where Chu Tian is?" "Deliver medicine?" When Dong Fangqian saw Vivian open the wooden box, a dense aura immediately spread out, instantly enveloping the entire room. Dong Fangqian's injuries were covered by this aura, and it only took a moment for him to recover. This medicine was... The door was suddenly pushed open and several dozen Dongfang family guards charged in, loudly shouting, Catch the assassin! Stuff. Dong Fong Gon immediately stopped them. If this fellow wanted him, these people couldn't stop him. This isn't the time, go find Miracle Commerce's people. Meng Yingying was tossing and turning on the bed. With the recent events, she had been worried for several days without sleeping. Now that Chu Tian was sick, Meng Yingying was filled with panic. She didn't know if Chu Tian could make it through. It was said that the Warhound's army had been plundering merchant ships, clearly wanting to borrow ships to head south. If there was no Chu Tian, could they stop the fierce Warhound's kingdom? At this time, the news was sent to Meng Yingying. It was said that an outsider had come to Central State to deliver medicine. Meng Yingying first pinched herself, and when she was sure that she wasn't dreaming, she jumped up in joy. She immediately put on some clothes and rushed to Dong Fong Gon's palace. She saw that her elder sister had already arrived. At this moment, Meng Qingwu's face was full of excitement and her body was even trembling. She was holding a simple little wooden box in her hands. Even her usually calm and composed sister was so happy, so the little wooden box must contain the immortal elixir. Aren't you Princess Meng Yingying? Meng Yingying found a girl that seemed to be 1 or 2 years younger than her. She had dark green hair and a bright wreath on her head. Her clothes were made from elite green leaves and she had a pair of snow-white feet. She was very beautiful and her ears were long and pointed. She was currently sitting on a stool holding a teacup and her jade-like eyes were curiously looking at the people around her. When this strange-dressed person saw Meng Yingying, her eyes immediately lit up. Her snow-white feet stepped on the ground and she ran over to Meng Yingying with a face full of joy. She carefully looked Meng Yingying up and down. You're even more beautiful than in the movies. Me and my sisters really like you. I never thought that I would see you in person. This is too great. Meng Yingying was a bit embarrassed and a bit confused. Just who was this person? Yingying, this is the Wood Elf race's Princess Vivian. Meng Qingwu walked over and said to her little sister, it's her who brought the immortal herb to Chu Tian. She is our Miracle Commerce's great benefactor. Elf princess? Meng Yingying was shocked. This was a real princess and she, Yingying, was just a fake. Meng Yingying did not dare neglect and quickly said, Big sister princess, oh no, I should call you Grandma Princess. I am Meng Ying, thank you for saving Chu Tian. The little princess' face fell and she indignantly said, What grandma? How do I look like a grandma? The little princess was a bit unhappy. Dong Fong Gon's heart skipped a beat. This little elf looked harmless, but her cultivation was unfathomable. If he accidentally angered her, the consequences would be unimaginable. Meng Yingying scratched her head and quickly apologized. I'm sorry. The elves' lifespans are different from humans. I don't know what to call you. The elves' lifespans were much longer than humans. The little princess looked like a 13-14-year-old human, but she was actually 60-70 years old. Meng Yingying had just turned 16. Was it wrong to call her grandma? It seemed like whether it was humans or elves, they didn't like being called old. Forget it. The little princess did not care and impatiently said, Why isn't Chu Tian here yet? I want to see him. Chu Tian is recovering from his injuries. Meng Qingwu could not wait any longer. Let's send the medicine to him. Chapter 685. On the day of Imperial City's fall, there was a sudden storm. This bad weather made it harder to chase after them, but it was heaven's blessing for the southern summer country. The giant shark gang's warship passed through Tsang State and smoothly entered the Four States Lake. After arriving at the Four States Lake, they no longer had to worry about the warhounds pursuing them. Cuckoo. Chu Tian was wearing a coat as he sat on the warship. There was an electric lamp in front of him as he drew one blueprint after another. His body had clearly not recovered and there was no blood on his face, looking very weak. Chu Tian understood his injuries better than anyone else. To kill the true spirit realm expert Malim, he had paid a large price, but it didn't matter. As long as he didn't die, Chu Tian had many methods to save him. Meng Yingying pushed open the door and came in, holding 2 cans of hot food. Your injuries haven't healed, I think you should rest early. You want to beat Master Chu Tian with these injuries? How could it be that easy? Chu Tian gave a laugh. looking like he was very relaxed. He looked out the window at the pitch-black lake and had a ruffian look on his face. Father has never been chased by anyone before, and I was actually chased away by these lowly spirit beasts. What kind of bullshit Fong King is this? Just wait and see, I'll take this back no matter what. This was the Chu Tian Yingying knew. When Meng Yingying saw Chu Tian like this, if it wasn't for Zhao Pu, Gu Qianqiu, and the others reminding her, she would have thought that Chu Tian had recovered. This fellow was clearly half dead, but he was still thinking about taking revenge. She really didn't know what to do. Save it, save it. Meng Yingying gave a can of food to Chu Tian and snappily said, I think you should properly heal yourself and think of a way to protect your little life and miracle commerce before you think about taking revenge. Chu Tian was very confident in miracle commerce, but any genius or great existence would easily die before they fully matured. The continent was chaotic and turbulent, so it was not easy to survive in this chaotic world. But it was because of this that Chu Tian wanted to create miracle commerce. Miracle commerce could not only provide Chu Tian with large amounts of resources, it could also protect Chu Tian and the people around him as he grew stronger. Miracle commerce had developed smoothly until now, but they had suffered an unprecedented setback when they were expanding to the north of Imperial City. This could only mean that miracle commerce was not strong enough. However, Chu Tian secretly swore that he would not let something like this happen again. After the Imperial City battle, the southern summer country had been mostly destroyed. Their territory had shrunk by a quarter and their elites had suffered heavy losses. The armies of the 6 southern states added together could not compare to an imperial region. So, after the war hounds conquered the north, they would continue to invade the southern summer country. The crisis had not been resolved and the situation was still very serious. But Meng Yingying still had confidence in Chu Tian. In fact, Meng Yingying was the one who blindly believed in Chu Tian out of everyone here. The attack on the front lines was too sudden and Chu Tian did not have time to react. When Imperial City was attacked, Chu Tian was unconscious, so he had no choice but to run away. The situation was different now. Central State was miracle commerce's birthplace and Chu Tian had enough time to prepare. This time the war hounds were not facing the southern summer country, but rather miracle commerce led by Chu Tian. The giant shark gang's fleet arrived at the Central State port. People disembarked. In just a few months, Central State had undergone earth-shattering changes. There were several industrial parks on the outskirts of the city and over 1,000 large ships were docked at the port at the same time. There were also countless large airships flying in the sky. This bustling scene was not inferior to Imperial City at all. The tense situation in the north did not seem to have spread here. Central State City was still bustling with activity. The Meng sisters, Nangong Yun, and Qin Bingyu all sighed. They never thought that they would return this quickly. But there was no time to reminisce. The war hounds would first attack Central State. Once Central State fell, not only would the southern summer country have no hope, miracle commerce would also be uprooted. Chu Tian would not allow this to happen. He came to the Central State Yun sect and gathered everyone. If my guesses aren't wrong, in 10 days or half a month, the war hounds will attack Central State through the waterways. The high-level members of Imperial City and Central State were all gathered together, listening to Chu Tian with serious expressions. There were several thousand miles of mountain ranges in the north of Central State and it would not be easy for the war hounds to cross them. The best way was to steal the southern summer warships and attack Central State City through the waterways. The war hounds have lived in the war hound plains for generations, so fighting on water is not their specialty. We have enough advantages, but this advantage is not enough because the war hounds will receive the support of the Eagle Burial Kingdom's Air Force, using the Air Force to cover the water force. If it's like this, we will be at a complete disadvantage with our lacking Air Force. Chu Tian ordered, I announce that from now on, the entire state will be under military control. All resources will be used for war preparations. In the following battle, not only do we need to win a beautiful victory. Everyone was filled with worry. Did they really have a chance of winning? The Imperial region had over 100 soldiers, gathering half of the southern summer country's army. In terms of battle strength, they had gathered around 80% of the southern summer country's strength. There was also the front line that the southern summer country had spent several generations to build, but even with such a strong defense, it still fell in a week. The difference in strength between the warhounds and the southern summer country was too large. Even if the southern states could rely on the mountains and rivers to defend, in front of an absolute power, what use would a defensive line have? Relax, once the warhounds come to Central State, I will make it so they won't be able to return. Chu Tian had half a month to prepare. Although it seemed very rushed, it was actually more than enough. We will use the full strength of the Yunsek's laboratory and the foundation that Miracle Commerce has built in Central State for half a year to create several new weapons for Central State. The scholars whispered to each other, revealing expressions of interest. Yun Tianhe asked in a curious voice, "What weapon does the chairman want to invent?" Chu Tian first revealed a blueprint. When the Yunsect scholars saw this blueprint, they all felt it was very familiar because this blueprint was very similar to the source energy bombs they had made before. Only Chu Tian had made a large number of modifications, making the source energy bombs look very complete. That's right, this is the source energy bomb. I have modified and improved the Yunsect's bombs, making it more controllable and safer. Other than that, I have developed several crude oil refining techniques that will allow us to make even more powerful and destructive heavy explosives. Everyone was filled with excitement. The Imperial City battle was too rushed and Miracle Commerce hadn't been in Imperial City for long, so the infrastructure and industrial facilities were not complete. Although Meng Qingwu wanted to use the source energy bombs, she didn't have the ability to make more. Even so, it was quite useful in the beginning and left a deep impression on everyone. Now the situation was different. Central State was the birthplace of Miracle Commerce. Miracle Commerce had been developing in Central State for half a year and now they had a basic industrial scale. Whether it was resources or production, they couldn't compare to Imperial City at all. Chu Tian showed several blueprints that he had thought of on the way back to the warship. This is a single soldier source energy bomb. It's made from highly concentrated crude oil and its specialty is that it can be carried and used by a single soldier. It doesn't have a wide range, but it has a large destructive power. I named it Source Energy Grenade. The Source Energy Grenade was very simple to make and it didn't have a large area of effect. It was mainly used by soldiers on the battlefield and was used to kill enemies from a short distance. As long as a Source Energy Grenade landed on an enemy, even a true Soul Realm expert would be heavily injured or even killed. Other than that, using a simple catapult to launch the bomb cannot guarantee its safety and the efficiency and accuracy are too low. Chu Tian revealed another design idea. We need to make a more accurate source energy bomb launcher. Not only will it have an automatic launching process, it will also have a more precise guidance. Different launchers can launch different bombs, so we can achieve a stronger killing effect. Chu Tian listed several other plans. Combining the source energy bomb with the crossbow, turning the bomb into an arrow to shoot, or making a floating mine in the water. Everyone was filled with amazement. Genius, what was called a genius? Chu Tian's plans were all given to the Yunsect's design department. As for how much they could complete, it all depended on luck. Chu Tian was only responsible for improving the bomb design. As for whether it could be used in a weapon, that would depend on Miracle Commerce's current research ability. As for the source energy bomb, I've finished introducing it. Chu Tian then changed the topic. The source energy bomb's destructive power is very strong, but with our current technology, the source energy bomb we can make can only threaten awakened soul realm cultivators. It is a limited threat to true spirit realm cultivators. Other than that, we also have flaws in terms of range, so we need to design a stronger and more powerful weapon to deal with true spirit realm cultivators. Actually, the effect of the source energy bomb was already very shocking. With Central State's current resources and production capacity, it was enough to produce large amounts of bombs before the Warhound's army moved south. This could change the situation of the battle. Could it be that Chu Tian had an even stronger weapon? Chu Tian took out a giant blueprint and everyone was stunned. This blueprint looked like a source energy pistol, but it was much larger. Just the barrel was over 4 meters long and the structure was incomparably complex. There were at least 4 magazines designed to supply energy. It looked just like an enlarged source energy pistol. There was a source energy array inside. Whether it was the complexity or the level, it was not something current source energy firearms could compare to. Everyone look carefully. This is the new weapon that Miracle Commerce will be developing. Chu Tian pointed at the blueprint and introduced it. As you can see, this weapon is several times larger than the source energy firearms. I'll name it the Source Energy Cannon. The might of a source energy cannon is around 200 times that of the source energy pistol. 200 times the power? What kind of concept was that? Even with the protective spirit energy of a true spirit expert, it would be hard for them to take a few shots without being injured. Chapter 686. Meng Qingwu had imagined Chu Tian's injuries to be very serious. Actually, these injuries were a bit more troublesome than before, but it was impossible for Chu Tian to deal with them. He had been resting in bed for the past few days, but he was actually taking this chance to relax. The Yunsek's research had made enough progress, so Chu Tian didn't need to personally take care of everything. It was fine to let his subordinates take care of it. As for Meng Qingwu and Miracle Commerce searching the world for Chu Tian didn't care. How could a small country like the Southern Summer Country find an immortal herb? Immortal herbs weren't cabbages. Level 2 immortal herbs were even rarer than level 3 immortal herbs in a sense because immortal herbs were created by the heaven and earth, so they had a large amount of essence. Most immortal herbs far surpassed level 2 immortal herbs, so low-level immortal herbs were hard to find. Then again, even if they found a level 2 immortal herb, did Miracle Commerce have something of equal value to exchange for it? Miracle Commerce's current resources were mostly from the Southern Summer Country, so they weren't high-level, high-quality, or rare. The money they used was the Southern Summer Country's gold coins, which were worthless in other countries. Although they had a bit of source stones in reserve, it was far from enough to buy an immortal herb. This kind of purchase was a waste of effort no matter how he looked at it. Who would have thought that when Chu Tian had this kind of thought, a little elven princess would come out of nowhere with an immortal herb? She traveled tens of thousands of miles to Central State and didn't ask for anything in return, giving it to Chu Tian for free. What the heck? Where did this prodigal come from? How precious was an immortal herb? It was equivalent to over 100 top-grade sacred herbs. Chu Tian had a look of disbelief on his face as he looked at the elf who had given him the medicine. This was a short elf that was only 1.40 meters tall. She was wearing clothes woven from branches and leaves and wore a crown of flowers on her head. She was barefooted, and although her body was not fully developed, her face was breathtakingly beautiful. This person's aura was very strong. Perhaps she was a peak expert. But her face was filled with curiosity and innocence, looking like she didn't know much about the world. According to the elven tradition, young elves were not allowed to come into contact with the outside world. Perhaps she had secretly run out. Wah! When the little princess saw Chu Tian, her snow-white face turned red with excitement and her eyes were filled with stars. She was a little nervous and reserved. I never thought I would be able to see you. I am Vivian, although I am not a human. I have used the things you invented, so I admire you very much. So when I heard you were injured, I brought you a herb from my tribe. Quickly take a look and see if this herb is useful to you. So the reason and motive of the little princess giving medicine made everyone not know whether to laugh or cry. They never would have thought that Miracle Commerce's influence would seep into the elves, and they never would have thought that there would be a worshipper like the little princess amongst the elves. Longevity grass? Chu Tian opened the box to take a look and revealed a surprised expression. Longevity grass was a rare herb recorded in ancient books, and Chu Tian had never seen it in the future. This was a precious herb that could increase one's lifespan. Meng Yingying nervously asked, "Is it useful?" Longevity grass contains the essence of life. Even if a normal person uses it, their lifespan will increase according to their lifespan, so it is not a problem to repair damage to one's life. This herb was very special. Even if Chu Tian ate it raw, he would still be able to recover from his injuries. But Chu Tian would not waste it like this. Other than that, he found a problem with this herb, only this herb has traces of an unremoved seal on it. If my guess isn't wrong, you secretly brought it out from your tribe. Chu Tian's guess was not without basis. Even if the elves were very closed off, they wouldn't come all the way here to deliver medicine to an outsider they had never met. This medicine was most likely done by this little elf, and she didn't look that old, probably less than 70 years old. From the traces on this herb had been transplanted once, but it hadn't been moved in 80 years. So, Chu Tian did not even need to think about it to make this judgment. This was the property of the elven tribe, or perhaps it was the property of a high-level member of the elven tribe. Anyways, it wasn't this little elf's personal item, so it was most likely stolen. Everyone became worried. The elves were very strong. If the little princess stole an immortal herb and gave it to Chu Tian, wouldn't this anger the elves? The elves were xenophobic and did not like coming in contact with humans. Now that the little elf had not only broken the rules of the tribe, she had also stolen an important herb. If the elves came to find trouble with them in a fit of rage, Miracle Commerce would not be able to bear the consequences. Powerful, truly worthy of being Chu Tian, you can actually see the truth with a single glance. Little Princess Vivian did not hide anything as she giggled and said, "Our tribe doesn't have many immortal herbs and I don't have any in my hands, so I had no choice but to secretly dig one out. But don't worry, the elves won't find trouble with you for this small matter. At most they will lock me up for 8-10 years." The little princess did not think she had done anything wrong. This immortal herb did not have much use for the elven elders. It was at most one of Aubersen's treasures. Rather than being kept by Aubersen every day, it was better to take it out and use it for something more meaningful. With this chance, Chu Tian would owe the elves a favor. Perhaps it would be very useful in the future. House arrest for 8-10 years? This punishment was too severe. Little Princess Vivian wanted to help Miracle Commerce and was willing to accept this punishment. This made the Meng sisters feel a bit sorry. Don't look at me like this, 8-10 years is nothing to the elves. Not to mention house arrest has no effect on me. Little Princess Vivian immediately added, "It's because our tribe doesn't have a way to lock me up yet. The herb has already been stolen and it's too late to send it back, so you don't need to worry." Meng Yingying was moved as she said, "We really don't know how to thank you. Why are humans so troublesome?" Vivian was a bit unhappy. "Isn't it just a herb? It's no big deal." The little princess had already said this. If he continued to push it, he would seem like an old woman. Chu Tian impolitely took the immortal herb and wrote a list for Meng Qingwu. He told Meng Qingwu to gather these materials as soon as possible. These materials were all common sacred herbs. With Miracle Commerce's current ability and resources, it shouldn't be hard to find them. Meng Qingwu took the list and left. Chu Tian looked over Vivian and said, "Can you let me see your source spirit?" Of course, there's no problem. Vivian's spirit energy was released. When her spirit energy was released, it didn't have any color and one could only see ripples in space. Following that, a white dagger appeared above Vivian's head. This dagger was very special. It seemed like it was connected to space. It contained a strong spatial energy and every time it moved, it would cut through space like tofu. Spatial dagger. Little Princess Vivian's source spirit. A rare spatial attributed source spirit. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said, "Although you have a strong spatial source spirit, the strange thing is that you don't seem to cultivate a spatial attributed cultivation technique." Vivian said with a depressed expression, "It is because spatial attributed cultivation techniques are rare and the elves can't find one suitable for them, so my main cultivation technique isn't spatial attributed." Everyone felt it was a pity hearing this. The spatial attribute was definitely one of the strongest attributes. If she could find a suitable cultivation technique to complement her source spirit, Little Princess Vivian's potential would be very shocking. However, because the spatial attributed was rare and powerful, there were very few people who could cultivate it, so it was hard to pass it down. It was normal that the little princess couldn't find a suitable cultivation technique for herself. This is truly great. Chu Tian gave a laugh which made everyone suspicious. Chu Tian explained, "You didn't come all the way here to give me the medicine, so miracle commerce can't repay you. I'll use a special cultivation technique to return the favor. Little Princess Vivian was shocked. It can't be. Could it be that Chu Tian had a spatial attributed cultivation technique? This cultivation technique is called void escaping. It is a movement technique based on space. Your source spirit spatial dagger matches the requirements of this cultivation technique. As long as you can cultivate this cultivation technique, there will be few people in the same realm that can threaten your life. Everyone's faces fell. These people were not only shocked that Chu Tian could take out a spatial attributed cultivation technique, they were also shocked at the strong effects of this cultivation technique. Once this void escaping was cultivated, no matter how much his battle strength increased, at least within a large realm, it would be hard for anyone to kill him. This was definitely a powerful cultivation technique. Vivian found this a little hard to believe. Could this person really take out a spatial attributed cultivation technique? Chu Tian did not say anything else as he took out a jade slip and spent the entire night recording the cultivation technique. He personally gave it to Vivian and seriously said, "After you memorize this cultivation technique, destroy it. Don't leak it, otherwise it will bring trouble." Vivian had only wanted to give him the medicine. She never thought that she would have this kind of fortuitous encounter. Vivian had thought that in her entire life, it would be hard for her to cultivate a complete spatial attributed cultivation technique. When Vivian saw the main points of the void escaping cultivation technique, she felt her blood boil. This was not just a complete spatial attributed cultivation technique, it was also a very high-class cultivation technique. To Vivian and the elves, this cultivation technique was worth more than a single immortal herb. Even 10 or 100 couldn't compare. Meng Qingwu came back at this time. The materials that Chu Tian needed had all been found in the storage, so the conditions were met. Now he could directly refine the medicine. Good. The heavens really are helping me. This troublesome old injury can finally be cleaned up. Chu Tian said to Vivian, "Stay in Central State for 2 days. If there's anything you don't understand, write it down and I'll explain it to you when I come out." After saying this, Chu Tian went into closed-door cultivation. Chapter 687. The source energy cannon has 100 times the power of a source energy gun, but the energy consumption is also 100 times higher. Not only does it require a high-energy magazine, it also requires a high-quality material. With our current battery technology, weapon refining technology, and the materials we have on hand, I'm afraid it will be hard to meet the requirements. Chu Tian did not care about Yun Tianhe's question at all. There's no need to worry. I've already thought of a method to refine high-strength crystal oil while I was in Imperial City. The Central State battery base and the military base barely meet the requirements. As for the materials, when we left Imperial City, we brought out several hundred-year-old metals that can withstand the energy of the source energy cannon. Chu Tian also proposed a heavy firearm plan. This kind of firearm was also made from a very expensive rare metal. Its specialty was that it could withstand high speeds for a long time, so it was suitable to be used to create a high-capacity, fast-firing rate, and long-lasting firearm. Whether it was the source energy cannon or the heavy source energy gun, they were all weapons of mass destruction. The technology and material requirements were very high, so Chu Tian had to personally participate in the research to ensure that it could be produced before the warhounds attacked. The Yun sect already had a very strong research force. Now that the Imperial City Yun sect and the Central State Yun sect had merged, their strength naturally increased by several times. Several hundred top scholars worked day and night, several dozen experiments were conducted at the same time, and several thousand people from the Yun sect participated. After many experiments and calculations, it only took a few days for the results to appear. Several dozen airships went back and forth between Central State and South Sky City, transporting large amounts of refined crystal oil from the oil fields. Miracle Commerce's 5 crystal oil warehouses in the main city were filled to the brim. After they had enough materials, the several factories began to operate at the same time. Over 10,000 workers and over 1,000 array masters began to work. Meng Qingwu personally went to the factories to inspect the situation. There were several hundred fist-sized things that had already been produced. They were perfectly round like fruits and were covered in runes and lines. There was a high-density crystal oil inside and there was a red button at the top. As long as this button was pressed, the source energy battery inside would activate the array, causing the crystal oil inside to explode. This was the source energy grenade. The structure was not complicated and it was easy to produce. Because it was small, each soldier could carry one or two and it would have a terrifying effect on the battlefield. Even if one was thrown onto an 8-9th awakened soul layer expert, they would be crippled if not dead. In the source energy weapon warehouse, there were a total of 50,000 source energy firearms. There were over 5,000 source energy submachine guns. This was far more than the weapons in Imperial City. This batch of weapons was enough to make up for the lack of quality and strength in the Central State Army. Not bad. When Meng Qingwu saw the neatly arranged weapons, her heart filled with confidence. At this time, the giant shark gang sent another piece of good news to Meng Qingwu. After the warhounds Fong King captured Imperial City, he wanted to attack the Calm Martial ruler's army, but the Calm Martial ruler ambushed the 3 northern ports and took away all the warships. Even if he didn't take away the ships, the docks were all burned down. The Calm Martial ruler is leading the remaining 300,000 Southern Summer Cavalry to meet us from the north. The Central State Army was small and weak, so the Calm Martial ruler had come at the right time. The Calm Martial ruler had the highest status of the Southern Summer 3 rulers and was someone who could support half of the Southern Summer country. Not to mention he had brought a large group of elites to Central State. The Calm Martial ruler had not only taken all the ships, he had also burned down the ports. This was without a doubt delaying the warhounds' attack, giving Chu Tian a chance in Central State. Immediately prepare to welcome them. Meng Qingwu brought Miracle Commerce's group to the Central State port. First they cleared out most of the port and docks, then they built a temporary military camp. After 2 days, several hundred large warships appeared in front of them. The Calm Martial ruler had brought 280,000 elite cavalry to Central State this time. Most of them were the Storm Cavalry, which was one of the strongest main forces of the Southern Summer Country. The 400,000 cavalry of the Southern Summer Country was the most important battle force. Half of them were in Imperial City and the other half were in Song State. If this army was not on duty when the battle began, it was unknown if the Fong King's army could capture Imperial City. Now that this army had come to Central State, it would be a great help to defend Central State. The fall of the Imperial region was a large blow to the Calm Martial ruler. But the Calm Martial ruler did not seem angry or flustered, rather he seemed very calm. As the commander-in-chief of the Southern Summer Army, he was very good at hiding his emotions. With the Southern Summer country's disaster, the Calm Martial ruler clearly blamed himself. He did not see through the warhounds' true intentions in invading Song State. When the warhounds' army entered Song State, it looked like they were heading for Song State's main city and they deliberately revealed their intentions to attack the farms, but this was all a cover. The true goal was to drag the Southern Summer country's Northern Cavalry Army into a quagmire, making them temporarily lose their usefulness and allowing the Fong King to personally lead the army into Southern Summer. This was not the Calm Martial ruler's fault. The Southern Summer country's intelligence was clearly lagging behind. They did not know that the Warhounds' planes had been unified and they did not know that there was a spirit beast kingdom supporting the Warhounds' kingdom. The new Fong King was clearly an experienced general, having a deep understanding of the Southern Summer Army. In this situation where the intelligence was not equal, the Calm Martial ruler could not do anything. After all, he was not a prophet. The previous king has given his orders. Gu Qianqiu respectfully came forward and said, "We ask the Calm Martial ruler, Dongfang Gan, to inherit the Southern Summer King's throne." The surrounding soldiers all kneeled down. Whether it was the Calm Martial ruler's prestige, fame, or background, he was worthy of this position. The Southern Summer country was like a group of dragons without a head, so they needed a leader to give orders. Who would have thought that the Calm Martial ruler would coldly say, "How can a general be the Southern Summer King? This ruler will not accept the throne. Letting Dongfang Haoren inherit it is the proper way." If this was said by someone else, people would think it was fake, but the calm martial ruler's character was known by the entire country. He was like another Dongfang Zhan. Although he had a high status, he had no interest in material comforts. When the previous Southern Summer King was choosing between the two princes, he preferred the decisive Dongfang Gan. Who would have thought that when Dongfang Gan learned that his royal father wanted to pass the throne to him, he would lead his troops to fight the war hounds without a single word? Dongfang Gan's actions were telling the previous king that his ambitions were on the battlefield and not in the palace. The previous king could only helplessly pass the throne to Dongfang Hao. Dongfang Hao had great ambitions but no talent, so he was not a virtuous king. However, he was very tactful and shrewd, having the heart of a king, so he had governed the southern summer country quite well over the years. Now Dongfang Hao was dead. Was Dongfang Gan not willing to become the southern summer king? The great scholar said with a calm expression, "The prince is talented, but he is too young and lacks experience on the battlefield. Without any experience in governing, how can he take the throne? The southern summer country is in a special period. I ask the calm martial ruler to not decline. We ask the king to immediately ascend the throne. We ask the king to immediately ascend the throne." Everyone began to loudly shout out. Dongfang Gan tightly knit his brows as he said, "If I become the king, who will go to war? The southern summer king does not need a king, but rather a general that can sweep through the war hounds." The calm martial ruler's words are wrong. Meng Qingwu said, "The entire country is in a war that concerns the fate of the country. With the king personally leading the army, it will raise the morale of the army. As long as we can pass this calamity, we won't need to worry about counterattacking in the future. Prince Dongfang Haoran is not even 30 years old and can already break through to the peak 9th awakened soul layer. It would be better for him to grow with the country guarding ruler, becoming a country protecting pillar that is not inferior to the calm martial ruler. On the other hand, if the prince ascends the throne early, not only will his strength not convince the people, it will also delay the prince's growth. How could the calm martial ruler bear this? The calm martial ruler will have two benefits if you ascend the throne, but the calm martial ruler will have two mistakes if you don't. Please reconsider." Gu Qianxiu praised Meng Qingwu. She really was worthy of being the beautiful and intelligent vice-chairman of Miracle Commerce. These kind of reasonable words were much more useful than these people. The calm martial ruler gave a sigh and finally agreed. Under the escort of the army, Dongfang Gan finally carried out the simple coronation ceremony in Central State. From now on, Central State City would be the imperial city. After Dongfang Gan ascended the throne, he immediately issued several royal proclamations. First, Dongfang Haoran was given the title of calm martial ruler, inheriting the title left behind by the southern summer king Dongfang Gan. Of course, it was only in name. Dongfang Haoran did not have much experience on the battlefield and his strength was not strong enough, so he could not control the southern summer country's army. The current military power was still in Dongfang Gan's hands. Second, the country guarding ruler Chu Tian was given the title of Profound Marquis, being a first-class marquis of the southern summer country. He had the qualifications to mobilize the regular armies of the 6 states and also manage the 6 marquises. The marquises of the various counties had to be led by the country guarding ruler. Third, Meng Qingwu killed the Helsong tribe's vice-chief Malim and was given the title of Marquis of the Southern Summer Country. She was given the title of Cloud Dream Marquis, becoming the Marquis of Southern State. Of these 3 royal proclamations, 2 of them were royal proclamations for Miracle Commerce. Chu Tian added the title of Marquis on top of the ruler title and it was a first-class Marquis with real power. This was something that had never happened before in the history of the southern summer country. Other than Chu Tian, Meng Qingwu was also given the title of Marquis, becoming the southern state army where the western Marquis was stationed. This was the first female Marquis in the southern summer country in several hundred years. Regarding this, no one had any objections. The 3 great clans could not recover from the imperial city and the other large clans had either escaped, died, or returned to the war hounds, so how could they care about this? Among the marquises of the southern summer country, Other than the newly titled Cloud Dream Marquis Meng Qingwu, the Greenwood Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the Divine Wind Marquis were on Chu Tian's side. The great scholar Gu Qianxiu was also on Chu Tian's side. The new imperial city and central state were Chu Tian's territory. Therefore, from the marquis to the citizens, no one objected to this and they were all very excited. Chu Tian being placed in an important position by the Southern Summer Country was a very good thing for the Southern Summer Country. After Dongfang Gan announced the royal proclamations, he wanted to go to the Yun sect to find Chu Tian. In the end, before he could even move, news came from the Yun sect. Chu Tian had overworked himself these past few days, causing his old injuries to flare up. He could only rest in bed and could not continue working. This time, Miracle Commerce and the Southern Summer Country were all in a panic. They had finally waited for the calm martial ruler to inherit the throne. In the end, something had happened to Chu Tian. What should they do? In the hearts of the Central State people, Chu Tian's position was not inferior to the calm martial rulers. As long as Chu Tian was here, nothing was impossible, but once Chu Tian fell, how could they not have confidence in their hearts? What should they do? Find medicine. They had to find medicine. Chapter 688. The true value of the longevity grass was not the immortal herb itself, but rather its special property of increasing one's lifespan. The herbs and pills on the continent were strictly limited. For example, a level 1 herb was only effective for body refinement cultivators. If it was used on an awakened soul cultivator, the effect would be limited no matter how high it was. If it was used on a true spirit cultivator, it would have no effect at all. Therefore, a normal level 2 immortal herb could become a precious collection, but it didn't have much use for the elven elders. The special thing about the longevity grass was that not only did it have the medicinal properties of a level 2 immortal herb, it could also increase one's innate vitality. It wasn't like it didn't have any use for the elven elders. After all, it was equal to several decades of lifespan. Vivian recklessly stealing the longevity grass would cause quite a bit of a stir, but Chu Tian did not have any thoughts of returning it. With Chu Tian's current strength, it was easier said than done to get an immortal herb. Since it was delivered to him, how could he let it go? He would swallow the fat meat that was delivered to his mouth first. He wouldn't consider anything else in the future. But an entire immortal herb was too much. Chu Tian took a third of it to refine a pill. In terms of quality, it was only a half-immortal grade pill. Whether it was the longevity grass itself or the supplementary herbs, they were all sacred healing medicines that contained a large amount of life essence. So this pill was mainly used for healing, which was more than enough for Chu Tian's injuries. I can finally get rid of this sickly state. When Chu Tian swallowed the immortal pill, it was activated by his spirit energy and turned into a large amount of essence. It quickly seeped out of his organs, into his muscles, and into his bone marrow. A vigorous life energy covered his body, healing his broken meridians without any suspense. Not only did Chu Tian's injuries instantly turn for the better, his cultivation base also quickly jumped from the 6th awakened soul layer to the peak 6th awakened soul layer. Although this pill was made with a healing formula, it was still made with immortal herbs and many other sacred herbs. The spiritual energy condensed inside was something that a trivial intermediate awakened soul realm illustrious soul realm cultivator could not imagine. Not only did Chu Tian reach the peak 6th awakened soul layer, he could feel that he had only absorbed a fifth of the pill's essence. Even if he used the rest of the energy, it would be enough for him to break through the peak 6th awakened soul layer and jump into the 7th awakened soul layer, the true soul realm. Good, very good. He never thought that a third of the immortal herb would have this kind of effect. Not only had Chu Tian's injuries healed, he had also obtained a large increase in strength. If the rest of it was combined with some sacred herbs to refine into pills, it would be enough for other people to obtain a large increase in strength. Little Princess Vivian's medicine had increased Miracle Commerce's strength by another level. While Chu Tian was in closed-door cultivation, Little Princess Vivian was brought around Miracle Commerce by Meng Yinging. After touring the Yun Sect's research facility, Vivian was deeply shocked by Miracle Commerce's creativity. She felt that she had done an incredible thing. Chu Tian had the ability to change the entire world, and she, Vivian, had saved such a powerful person's life. Wasn't this a large merit? Not to mention that Vivian had obtained a large lucky chance. The spatial cultivation technique she obtained from Chu Tian was enough to benefit all living beings. This was something that no immortal herb could compare to. Other than that, Vivian had another large harvest. Because Meng Qingwu had given the task of taking care of little Princess Vivian to her little sister, Meng Yingying had been inseparable with Vivian for the past few days. The two of them ate and slept together, talking about everything. In the end, little Princess Vivian was surprised to find that she had many common topics with Meng Yingying, this fake princess. Although there was a large age gap between them and they were of different races, there was no barrier between them at all. The two of them regretted not meeting each other earlier and became good friends that talked about everything. Meng Yingying's heart was pure, beautiful, and kind, almost no different from elves. Meng Yingying was not as rigid as the other elves, so she was especially to little Princess Vivian's liking. The two of them had only known each other for a few days, but they had already agreed to make a movie together and even became sworn sisters. Meng Qingwu had been paying attention to the two of them. When she saw that her younger sister and the little princess were getting along well, her heart was very happy. The elves were naturally pure and kind, but they were also very sensitive and sharp. They would always be wary of the complicated and fickle humans. Only a pure person like Yingying could get along well with the elves. This was something that even Meng Qingwu could not do. Meng Qingwu did not know what realm the little princess cultivation had reached, but even Dongfang Gan in the second true spirit layer could not compare to her, so the little princess was at least in the third true spirit layer. Even in a warring kingdom, she would be a peak expert. Not to mention the little princess was the Elven King's daughter, having a revered identity and a high position. If they could use her to form a good relationship with the elves, Miracle Commerce would not need to fear the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom behind the Warhound's kingdom. On this day, Meng Yingying invited the little princess to the Miracle Hotel to eat and drink. Meng Qingwu felt that after a few days of contact, the little Princess Vivian should have let down her guard, so she personally came to the hotel to find the two of them. She saw these two fellows making an entire table of food and wine, drinking and chatting. The little princess was dancing on the large dining table with her bare white feet. Meng Yingying saw her elder sister appear and was very surprised. "Elder sister, why are you suddenly free? Come and sit." "I just happened to pass by and heard you were here, so I came to take a look." Meng Qingwu came to test the little princess, so she couldn't make it too obvious. "Honorable Princess Vivian, are you satisfied with Central State?" Vivian's face turned red. "I like it here." Meng Qingwu smiled and said, "Since you like it here, why don't you stay in Central State?" The little Princess Vivian was like a deflated balloon, her face full of depression, and said, "That won't do. The elves are not allowed to interact with humans privately. I've already left home for more than 2 days. The elders have most likely found out and are looking for me everywhere in the forest. If they can't find me in the forest, they will probably come here. I can't drag you guys down." Meng Yingying was very angry. "Why are the elves a bunch of old fogies? It's not like every human is a bad person. Princess Vivian has been in Central State for a few days, but we still don't know where you came from. Can you introduce your hometown to us?" This was the question Meng Qingwu wanted to know the most. She already had a general understanding that Vivian came from the south, but the kingdom lacked information on the southern region of the southern summer country. They only knew that there were barbarians, dwarves, and other rare races living in the endless forest. "That's right." Meng Yingying slapped the table. "After you tell us, I'll ask Chu Tian to build a communication station there. Even if you're in the tribe, you can still receive information from Central State and even contact us." Vivian was clearly tempted. If Miracle Commerce could build a communication station in the Emerald Forest, wouldn't that bring a rich life to the elves? It would make the tribe that had been sealed off for thousands of years filled with vitality. When she, Vivian, missed Yingying and Chu Tian, she could use the communication device to contact them. Is this really possible? For Miracle Commerce, this is just a small matter. Vivian didn't have any wariness towards the Meng sisters at all. When she heard the Meng sisters say this, her heart was filled with nothing but gratitude. She immediately told them about the tribe's area, the surrounding terrain, the specific location, and even the population strength. She told them everything. The area Vivian lived in was to the south of the southern summer country. It was a land of chaos that spanned tens of thousands of miles. Because the forest occupied 70 to 80% of the area, this place was called the Forest of Chaos. The terrain was chaotic, the species were chaotic, the races were chaotic, the influences were chaotic, and the order was chaotic. In short, it was a land of chaos. There were countless spiritual veins intersecting in this area, and the land was very fertile. There were countless heaven and earth treasures, as well as countless blessed lands. In short, it had the conditions to become a large empire. However, there were hundreds of races in this area. There were large races like the spirit beasts and elves, strong races like the dragons and the giants' tears, as well as rare races like the dwarves, the flower fairies, and the tree spirits. These races all had their own rules and kept each other in check, with no one being able to stand out. The west side of the Forest of Chaos was close to the sea, which was the border of the Sea Race Empire. The southeast side was occupied by the Empire, where many superpowers intersected, so this made the situation even more complicated. The current Forest of Chaos main system was a city-state system. Large amounts of underground cities and forest cities were scattered all over the place like a chessboard. Each city occupied thousands of miles of rich resources, representing an overlord. They were fought over by the various forest races, and there were some large cities that even had several vassal cities, becoming a giant that was not weaker than a warring kingdom. A place without a country? Meng Yingying felt this was very strange. There are clearly over 10 billion people, but there aren't any countries. The races are all concentrated in the same area. This is very rare on the continent. The different races have different habits and beliefs, so it is very hard to unify them. Meng Qingwu never thought that the southern summer country would have this kind of area. Then what are the strongest powers in the Forest of Chaos? Vivian said, other than us elves, there are several other strong powers in the Forest of Chaos. For example, Dragon City controlled by the Dragon Lord, Titan City controlled by the Giants, Wild Beast City controlled by the Spirit Beasts, West Sea City controlled by the Western Sea Race, and etc. They are all powers that cannot be underestimated and can be considered the overlords of the Forest of Chaos. Vivian drew a simple map of the area. Meng Qingwu had been very troubled recently. Miracle Commerce's development to the north had been blocked, so how should they expand? Now, a new world had appeared in front of her. This complicated and rich place, this primitive and barbaric place, perhaps it would become Miracle Commerce's new direction. As a merchant, Meng Qingwu was very clear that the places with business opportunities were not places with order. The more chaotic a place was, the more opportunities there were to rise. Chapter 689. More than 10 days later, before Royal City had fallen into the enemy's hands, the elf Aubersen left Imperial City and rode a dragon hawk beast south. He passed through Central State, Qing State, and Southern State before arriving in a boundless primitive forest. An entire tens of thousands of miles was covered in forest, as if it had never been developed before. There were large amounts of unimaginably terrifying fierce beasts living here, with level 3 demon beasts being common. Whether it was the southern summer country or the warhounds country, this was a wild area that could not be developed. Aubersen recklessly charged into the territory of these fierce beasts, but he ignored the warning and hostile roars coming from all around him. Not a single fierce beast dared to attack him. These fierce beasts did not have high intelligence, but they could tell who was strong and who was weak. Even without the unfathomable Aubersen, the dragonhawk beast he was riding was a powerful level 3 demon beast. Its wings were 10 meters long and its body was covered in red dragon scales, but it had the claws and head of an eagle. The sharp aura it released was enough to deter most fierce beasts. When Aubersen passed through the endless mountains, traces of civilization began to appear. He arrived in the sky above a jade-like forest. Although this was also a forest, it was different from other areas. The forest's colors were bright and beautiful, and it was full of vitality. Every tree gave people the feeling that they weren't just plants, but living creatures. The entire forest covered over 100 miles, and there were many trees that were over 100 meters tall. Each tree was comparable to a skyscraper in the human world. The holes in the trees had wooden windows, and there were delicate tree houses hanging outside. It's Elder Aubersen. Elder Aubersen is back. The dragon hawk flying through the forest attracted the attention of some elves, but when the elves saw the person on the dragon hawk, they immediately let down their guard. They put down the bows in their hands and began to cheer. These elves were hidden in the forest, almost blending into the forest. If they didn't show themselves, it was almost impossible to detect them. Aubersen jumped down and fell down from 200 meters in the air. He was like a light leaf as he passed through the branches of the trees. He grabbed a vine and gently swung down, falling onto a carpet of grass. Elder Aubersen, you're finally back. Has the tribe been fine recently? Have the northern ogres stopped? How are the southern lizardmen? Has that violent mountain giant awakened yet? Relax, everything is fine. Figures jumped out from the trees all around them. They were as beautiful as butterflies, quickly covering their bodies. The elves were not the same as humans. There was a large difference in the appearance of humans. The fat ones could be as fat as a ball, the skinny ones could be as thin as a bamboo pole, the beautiful ones could be able to cause the fall of a country, and the ugly ones could be comparable to demons. There was no such thing as being too fat, too thin, or too ugly among the elves. Almost every female elf would be a first-class beauty if they were placed among humans. It was because of this that the elves became one of the races that produced the most beautiful men and women on the continent. Aubersen was a very popular person in the tribe because Aubersen's status was very special. The elves were a very closed-off race, and most elves were not allowed to participate in worldly affairs, so the elves were very closed off to the outside world. Aubersen's job was to wander around and collect information about the surrounding countries. Every time he went out, he would be gone for a year or two, and every time he came back, he would bring back interesting news and customs from different countries. Because of this, the young men and women of the elves liked to pester him. Aubersen gave a very friendly greeting. Hello everyone. Hey, Uncle Aubersen. At this time, a clear and melodious voice rang out. To Aubersen, this voice was simply synonymous with the devil. He felt a headache coming on, but he had no choice but to look up with a smile. Aya, isn't this little Princess Vivian? I haven't seen Vivian for a year, and you've become even more beautiful than before. Aubersen had just looked up when he saw a pair of slender and beautiful legs. They were very white and slender, like they were carved from jade. It could be considered a perfect work of art, swinging back and forth on the swing. When this girl came, even with Aubersen's abilities, he didn't notice her at all. However, Aubersen was already used to this. This was a very beautiful elf girl. She had the appearance of a 12 to 13-year-old human. She was wearing a dress made of tree leaves, and her dark green hair was adorned with an exquisite crown of flowers. Her small and exquisite face was extremely beautiful, and she looked like a fairy from the forest. Even in the elven race, this elven girl was a 1 in 10,000 great beauty. Humph, I won't listen to you. Little Princess Vivian disappeared from the swing and instantly appeared on the ground. She was holding a bright red fruit in her hand, and with a kacha sound, she took a bite and juice splashed everywhere. Her sparkling eyes stared at Aubersen, and she vaguely said, "Where is my present? You wouldn't have forgotten, right?" Aubersen quickly wiped his sweat. "Of course I wouldn't forget little Princess Vivian's arrangements. I believe that you will like it this time. Don't lie to me. You said the same thing last time, and the thing you brought back was some large warring kingdom's national treasure, a treasure left behind by an ancient divine race. In the end, I didn't like it at all. This time I passed by a small human country and found a very interesting thing. Although the value isn't high, you will definitely be satisfied." The little princess jade-like eyes lit up. She didn't want anything valuable, it was enough as long as it was fun. Abersen took out the video disc player. What kind of thing is this? Isn't it just a mirror? It's called a video disc player, a thing that can store sound and images. It is very interesting, I'll teach you how to use it. There are also many other things, magnetic sound machines, canned food, light bulbs, and etc. There will always be something you will like. Little Princess Vivian was a bit interested. Then I'll take it back and try it out. The little princess lifted the video disc player with one hand and put everything else into her storage ring. When Abersen let out a sigh of relief, the little princess suddenly turned around and glared at him. If it isn't as magical as you say, or if it isn't fun at all, I'll go to your garden and pull out all the flowers and plants. Abersen's body trembled. How could this be? Those were his lifeblood. The little princess did not give Abersen a chance to speak. With a flicker of her body, she disappeared on the spot. Abersen opened his mouth, but he did not have time to say anything. He could only pray that the magical things the small southern summer country found would be enough to satisfy this little princess. The little princess' innate talent was very special, even Abersen could not catch up to her. In just a few breaths of time, the little princess had already returned to her treehouse. Everyone, quickly come and see. The little princess brought back something fun again. When the little princess returned to her treehouse, she immediately attracted a large group of elves. These elves were all younger than the little princess, and there were several that looked like 4 or 5-year-old human children. They were currently biting their fingers as they innocently looked at her. Big sister princess, what is this? Why have I never seen it before? The little princess, of course, had a very proud appearance. She stood in the middle of the countless little elves like a high king of children. This thing was brought back from the human world. This princess has never seen it before, so of course you haven't seen it before. Then how do we play it? Here, don't be anxious, let me slowly study it. What is this? It smells so good. A 6-year-old elf took out a can. Is this food? Greedy ghost, you only know how to eat. The little princess said. Abersen said that this is a can of human food and it tastes pretty good. Since we brought back quite a bit, we can all share it. The little princess had a very straightforward personality, which was why the children liked to play with her. In just a while, the several hundred cans Abersen brought back were divided among the children. Pa! The little princess opened a can and immediately smelled an even stronger fragrance. This made the little princess feel very surprised. Could it be that humans could cook demon beast meat? She had always thought that only the elves could cook demon beast meat on the continent. Delicious, too delicious. These elven children were all eating with relish. Although the elves could cook demon beast meat, the elves usually ate vegetarian food, so they weren't very good at cooking meat. When they ate Miracle Commerce's source energy cooking and human cooking recipes, each of the elves was filled with praise. Was it really that delicious? The little princess opened a can of violent bear meat. The meat was delicious, it was chewy, and the bones were very chewy. This was a very special delicacy. The little princess even drank all the soup and she suddenly felt a bit of regret. This kind of delicious thing, she wouldn't have told the others about it. But because of her face, she couldn't take it back. Little princess, how do you use this video disc player? Let me try. Vivian used the method Abersen taught her to turn on the video disc player. Several dozen pairs of clear eyes looked over at the same time, and they saw the reflective surface of the mirror suddenly light up as images began to appear. These timid elves were all startled, and they all ran away in a puff of smoke. What is going on? Why can we see other worlds in this mirror? My God, could this be the legendary planar mirror? This is an ancient era's divine weapon. The little princess was also very surprised at first. She had never encountered this kind of situation before. However, the little princess could feel that the energy fluctuations from this item were very weak, so it couldn't be a divine weapon. So she raised her hand and said, don't panic, this thing isn't dangerous. Everyone was skeptical, but they couldn't resist their curiosity. Dozens of little heads gradually gathered around, and when they saw the movie that was being played, everyone's face was filled with amazement, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Exclamations and screams rang out continuously. What? A picture appeared. It can even move. It's like it's connected to another world. What kind of technique is this? Some elves couldn't help but touch it with their hands. In the end, it was like touching a smooth and cold mirror, as if a layer of transparent glass had separated them from the other world. You guys are blocking me. Little Princess Vivian couldn't understand all this. She shouted loudly, "Don't be noisy, don't be noisy, there's a sound inside, I can't hear it anymore. If you guys don't listen to me, I won't show you." The elven children immediately became obedient. Chapter 690. After a strong wave of spirit energy, Chu Tian had smoothly come out. In this short closed-door cultivation, not only had he recovered from his injuries, he had also reached the 7th awakened soul layer. This filled miracle commerce with energy and swept away everyone's worries. It was all thanks to the immortal medicine little Princess Vivian sent. Since Chu Tian was fine, the little princess was prepared to go back. After all, she had left home for several days and the elven elders were searching for her, so they must be going crazy with worry. If they chased her here, Chu Tian and the small southern summer country's troubles would be unavoidable. Vivian decided to go back and admit her wrongs. At worst she would be locked up for a while, but as long as the storm passed, she could still come to the southern summer country to play with Chu Tian and Yingying. Vivian had given her the immortal medicine and Chu Tian had given her a spatial cultivation technique, so they were basically even. So, Chu Tian did not make her stay, making little Princess Vivian feel a bit disappointed. She said her goodbyes with a depressed expression. "Remember to come see me in the Forest of Chaos when you have time, I'll be very bored in the tribe." "Princess, you don't need to be in a rush to leave. I've carefully prepared some gifts for you, so can you wait a bit?" "Is that so?" "Many thanks big sister Meng Qinggu." Little Princess Vivian really liked Miracle Commerce's things, especially the cameras, the magnetic sound machine, and the video player. If she could bring a bunch of them back, she wouldn't be bored even if she was locked up. Meng Qingwu gave a soft cough before leaving. Chu Tian came back to his senses. The young miss had something to say? He immediately followed Meng Qingwu to the back hall. "What is this? Take a look at this first." Meng Qingwu took out the map from Princess Vivian's description. She first introduced the situation of the Forest of Chaos and then explained her thoughts. "The true threat we are facing right now is not the Warhound's kingdom, but rather the Eagle Burial Kingdom behind them. It is not hard to defeat the Warhound's kingdom, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom is not easy to deal with. Miracle Commerce is barren and cannot expand and the north is covered by the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so the only place we can break through is the south. The overall strength of the Forest of Chaos is not inferior to an empire. Those peak forest cities, mountain cities, and underground cities are not weaker than the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Only there are hundreds of races and the situation is chaotic, so the power distribution is uneven. Although the terrain is primitive, the fierce beasts and the various powers are chaotic, it is also because of this that it is a good place to fish in troubled waters. I understand the young miss meaning. The Forest of Chaos is a fertile land and Miracle Commerce has great potential in this area, but we haven't thought of a way to enter it yet. I think we should go through Vivian and find a way to connect with the elves. The south could become a fertile land for Miracle Commerce and Chu Tian's group to expand, but everything was difficult at the beginning. The powers in the Forest of Chaos were too strong. Not to mention the Dragon Lord, the Elven King, or the Titans, any small or medium-sized power could destroy them. How to enter safely was the most important thing. The best way was to form an alliance with a local tribe. This way they could protect them in the beginning and also help Miracle Commerce develop. The little elf sitting outside, wasn't she just a local? Meng Qingwu hadn't thought of a way to form an alliance yet. After all, the elves were very reclusive and had an overwhelming strength. If they made contact with them, not only would they not achieve their goal, they might even bring disaster upon themselves. Understood, leave it to me. When Chu Tian returned to the living room, Meng Yingying was sending off little Princess Vivian. The two of them had a look of reluctance because after today, who knew when they would see each other again? Chu Tian walked in front of Vivian and directly said, "I have a suggestion. How about you don't go back and just join Miracle Commerce? Meng Qingwu almost spat out blood. What kind of idea was this? Did he not know the consequences of doing this? If they left Vivian in Central State and let her join Miracle Commerce, the elves would definitely be enraged. They would insist that Chu Tian was the one who kidnapped the princess. It would be strange if they didn't destroy Miracle Commerce at that time. I agree. I also think so. Vivian didn't even have time to speak before Meng Yingying expressed her strong support. Since you will be punished when you go back, why don't you stay with us? But Vivian was very excited. She hadn't had enough fun these past few days and she would be locked up for a long time when she returned to the tribe. If she could choose, of course she wanted to stay. But Vivian wasn't stupid. If she went back on her own accord, she would be punished for violating the tribe's rules. But if she was left behind by humans, the situation would be completely different. Wouldn't that implicate Chu Tian and the others? Chu Tian said to Vivian, "Do you like Miracle Commerce? Do you want the elves to benefit and participate in Miracle Commerce?" "Of course I like it, this is a great cause." Vivian's words were not false at all. After traveling around Central State these past few days, she had a deep understanding of Miracle Commerce's potential. "I feel that Miracle Commerce's future will not be normal." You're right. Even in a small and poor country, Miracle Commerce only took half a year to develop to this point. But our dream is not to just stay in one place. Then what is it? We want to change this world and even change this era. We want the continent to be even more wonderful because of us, allowing everyone's lifestyle to undergo a heaven-shattering change. We want to personally create a miraculous dynasty. Vivian revealed a look of worship. This was great. This was the Chu Tian she admired. The southern summer country is too poor. If we can enter a place like the Forest of Chaos one day, I think Miracle Commerce will have great achievements. Chu Tian said this and suddenly revealed a compassionate look. I've heard that there are over 100 races living in the Forest of Chaos, fighting each other. There is no law and order, with bandits, murderous demons, and human traffickers everywhere. There should be a power that can end this chaotic situation and pacify this chaotic forest. Miracle Commerce is willing to help us and use the Forest of Chaos as the first step to our dream. I wonder if the elves are willing to help? Vivian's body trembled. What? Miracle Commerce wanted to go to the Forest of Chaos. The Forest of Chaos was Vivian's hometown. How could she not be willing? Vivian anxiously jumped up. Each elf hopes to change the situation of the forest, but we can't do it with just our strength. Then don't hesitate, let's work together now. With Miracle Commerce's wisdom and the elf's strength, sweeping the entire Forest of Chaos will not be a problem. Chu Tian patted Vivian's shoulder. As for the elves, there is no need to worry. I believe that in the near future, the Forest of Chaos will become peaceful and the elves will become an important force. The elven elders are very rigid, I'm afraid you will. Rigid? I, Chu Tian, specialize in dealing with rigid people. There is nothing I can't handle. You can rest assured and stay here for a few more days. After the southern summer country's matter is over, I'll go with you to the Forest of Chaos to convince them and let the elves become Miracle Commerce's allies. Really? Please look into my sincere eyes. Do I look like a swindler? Meng Ying seized this chance to say from the side, you might not understand this fellow, but as long as he dares to say something, there is nothing he can't do. No matter how difficult it is, you can be assured. Vivian was more and more moved. She was very clear about Chu Tian's achievements, so she knew that this person was good at creating miracles. Perhaps he could really convince them. All right, then I'll stay here for a few more days. Meng Yingying shouted out in pleasant surprise, great. Vivian's face was also filled with a smile. She liked this creative place from the bottom of her heart. The elven forest was filled with gardening, painting, and carving. That kind of life was too boring. She was bored for a day, not to mention a lifetime. People lived in this world, so they needed to do something. Meng Qingwu did not know what Chu Tian was thinking, but with their tacit understanding, Meng Qingwu would not question Chu Tian's decisions. Not to mention that Vivian was very strong. If she could stay in Central State City would at least have a strong defense. Princess Vivian has become a member of the company, so we should give her a position. With Vivian's status, we can't just casually ignore her. What position does the young miss think we should give her? The departments did not lack people in charge, so what position could they give Vivian? Meng Qingwu's heart skipped a beat. Since Miracle Commerce is prepared to expand into the Forest of Chaos, we should create an external development manager. The position will be the same as the branch chairman. What do you think? Chu Tian nodded. All right, that's it. Good. Meng Yingying revealed a smile. We welcome the princess to Miracle Commerce. Vivian giggled a few times. She had heard Meng Yingying talk about Chu Tian recently, so she was very envious of Meng Yingying who could work beside Chu Tian. It would be great if she could work together with Chu Tian, but she never thought that her wish would come true this quickly. What attracted Vivian the most was that Miracle Commerce was going to the Forest of Chaos. Vivian thought of going with Miracle Commerce and showing off her skills in the Forest of Chaos. Her blood began to boil. What should I do now? No rush, no rush. You don't need to do anything right now, I'll teach you a few things. If Chu Tian wanted to convince the old fellows of the Elven tribe, he needed to take out something that would make them speechless. During this period of time, you just need to practice the void escaping well. Yes, Chairman. The little princess had finally settled down. Chu Tian used the remaining 2/3 of the immortal herbs and with a bunch of cultivation increasing sacred herbs, he refined another 10 pills. Although they were refined from incomplete immortal herbs and dregs, they were not inferior to top-grade sacred pills and their effects were even better. Chu Tian gave them to the people around him. In the end, the young Miss, Yingying, Feng Kaidai, Yun Yao, and the others all easily reached the 6th awakened soul layer. Nangong Yun reached the peak 6th awakened soul layer and breaking through to the 7th awakened soul layer was just around the corner. Although Chen Bingyu did not break through, her cultivation had increased a bit. What surprised Chu Tian the most was that after Dongfang Haoren took the pill, his cultivation had reached the peak 9th awakened soul layer from the 9th awakened soul layer. His strength had almost reached the level of the Southern Summer Marquis and it seemed like he was a person with potential. The entire Miracle Commerce's strength had increased by a level. The various battle preparations had been completed and they were just waiting for the war hounds to arrive. Chapter 691. These elves didn't look like children, but according to human age, their average age was around 40 to 50 years old. Although the elves' mental development was slow and their cultivation speed and efficiency couldn't compare to humans, in this long period of time, no matter how slow their growth was, they were still much stronger than they looked. The weakest of these elves was in the awakened soul realm, with 7-8 being in the late awakened soul realm. There was also a true spirit realm expert other than little Princess Vivian. Just a group of children already had this kind of terrifying strength. It could be imagined just how strong the elves were. However, no matter how strong they were still children, so they were very curious about this strange thing they had never seen before. The narration slowly sounded out. Although the human language and elven language were two completely different languages, the human language was not hard to learn. Humans were one of the most important races on the continent, so the human language was something every elf had to learn since they were young, so it wasn't a problem for them to understand it. This illusory image stone was not a real movie, so the scenes were exaggerated. So, when the people fought, the scene was like the earth shattering and the elves' eyes were glued to it. Too great. Satisfying, it was very satisfying. This was simply a feast for the eyes and imagination. The entire treehouse was silent. Each little elf found that other than the intense fighting scenes, the most attractive part was the story itself. The elves were a race of intelligent beings that were 10 times more sensitive than humans. Therefore, when they watched the movie, they were 10 times more immersed than humans. The main character met the princess. That faintly discernible love that people couldn't grasp made the elves' hearts itch. That handsome and brave male lead Chu Tian and that beautiful and kind princess Meng Yingying, both of them had a pure heart and a noble character, making the elves instantly fall in love with them. I'm so angry, An 11 or 12-year-old elf girl angrily said, "Why is this Chu Tian so cowardly? If he likes her, then he should pursue her." That's right. Can't he see that Princess Meng Ying also likes him? That blockhead. Idiot. What do you know? The little princess waved her hand and said in an old-fashioned manner, "The human kingdoms care a lot about status. This warrior named Chu Tian is only a wandering swordsman, and that Meng Ying is a noble princess. Do you think that in the human kingdoms, normal people can casually walk together with princesses?" The elves all fell into deep thought. What? Humans are just so annoying. Why do they care so much about these superficial things? The elves had a hard time understanding the human worldview. These normal elves playing around with the little princess didn't feel like there was anything wrong with it. In the elven race, even if the elven king ate with the lowest level elves, no one would feel that there was anything wrong with it. The little princess is right. Another elf began to show off her knowledge. Think about it, if an ogre wanted to win over our little princess, do you think the great elder would agree? Pay! Little Princess Vivian's face turned red with anger. Chu Tian is such a handsome, righteous, and brave person. How could he compare to an ogre? This is simply shameful. Aren't they the same in the eyes of humans? Unreasonable humans. When the elves were arguing, the development of the plot increased suspense. The kingdom's generals secretly reported this matter and distorted the truth. The king was immediately enraged and prepared to put the princess under house arrest and execute the human warriors. Damn. The human king was too evil. Which part of Chu Tian wasn't worthy of the princess? Why did he stop her? The elves were filled with righteous indignation and were filled with anger. They broke out in cold sweat for the fate of the two of them. Who would have thought that at this time, the princess would receive the news and escape in the middle of the night? A series of thrilling and exciting escape scenes made people break out in cold sweat. This was just too exciting. The male and female lead's intelligence was displayed without a doubt. In the end, when the two of them were about to meet in the village, an unexpected incident occurred. The Scarlet Blood religion appeared and captured the kind princess. The remnants of the Scarlet Blood religion were wildly slaughtering innocent humans, using evil techniques to collect blood essence. When they saw this incomparably tragic murder, each elf's face turned red with anger and their bodies trembled with anger. It was as if those people who died were real, living people. How could there be such evil people in this world? What should they do? What would happen to the male and female leads' fates? The plot of the story was only half done, but the pace continued to increase. The story became more and more exciting, with all kinds of suspense and foreshadowing, finally exploding in the decisive battle. No! Don't die! When they saw the main character Chu Tian finally sink into the bottomless swamp to save the princess, each elf shed tears of grief. Could it be that after putting in so much effort, it still ended in a tragedy? Just as the elves were feeling sad about this, a miraculous turn of events happened. The final ending of the story was that everyone thought that the warrior and the princess were dead. The warrior and the princess hid their identities and lived in seclusion in a place where no one would disturb them, living a quiet and peaceful life. Good, good, good. The elves' hands almost broke from clapping. The final ending was just to their liking. The little princess also smiled through her tears. This was more like it. Good people should be rewarded. This gift was just too great. She loved this story to death. Is there really a person named Chu Tian in the human world? If he really exists, I must see him. That's right, that's right. He is my idol right now. The elves began to chatter. If there really was a person named Chu Tian in the human world, they had to see him no matter what. Princess Vivian, tomorrow is my 100-year-old birthday. An elf that didn't look much older than the little princess looked at the video player. I really like this. Can you give it to me? Another elf called out, "Doesn't the princess want my mount? How about I exchange it for this video player?" Prince. Not exchanging. Not exchanging. Not exchanging. The little princess angrily opened her eyes and reached out her arms to block the video player. It was like her sacred sovereignty was being invaded. This video player is this princess' most precious gift. Without my permission, if anyone dares to touch it, I will beat them until their head is full of bruises. Stingy. I'm stingy, I'm stingy. Let's ignore her and ask Elder Obersen for it. The elves looked at the video player with faces filled with longing and envy. If someone was willing to take out another one, they were willing to take out all their treasures to exchange. But since Elder Obersen could bring back one, why couldn't he bring back a second or third? The little princess also thought that since there was a story, why couldn't there be a second or third? Obersen's treehouse was quickly invaded by these children. When he saw the little elves charging at him, Obersen was instantly scared out of his wits. How could they do this? Obersen quickly explained that there was only one of these things. There was nothing else, there really was nothing else. Obersen's persuasion was useless, and he could only promise in the end, this human country is not far from us. When I have time in the future, I will definitely bring back gifts for you all. The elves were not satisfied with this, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Elder Obersen couldn't just make something out of nothing. Little Princess Vivian was the only one in the entire elven tribe that had a video player. This news quickly spread, and the little elves returned home to tell their elders. There were even some adult elves that came to ask little Princess Vivian to borrow the video player. Vivian was very angry. This thing was her precious treasure. How could she casually lend it out? The more people couldn't see it, the more curious they became. The Oldman tribe is willing to trade a month's worth of Moonlight Well water for little Princess Vivian's video player. The Green Leaf tribe is willing to trade a branch of the Tree of Life for little Princess Vivian's video player. Little Princess Vivian used to be the symbol of mischief and trouble. Almost no one liked to provoke her. In the past few days, little Princess Vivian had become completely popular. The treasure in her hands was not only coveted by her own people, but even some of the surrounding tribes had come to negotiate with her. I won't trade. If I say I won't trade, then I won't trade. Even if you take out a dragon egg, this princess won't trade. Princess Vivian was flustered and exasperated as she made a move. She actually chased away a group of people that came to negotiate and finally locked herself in a treehouse. The elven tribe was instantly thrown into chaos. This was because the people that were chased away by Princess Vivian had gone back to complain. These tribes immediately sent out a message saying that the elves were provoking their allies and breaking the alliance. If they didn't give a reasonable explanation, they would complain to the Elven Council. How would they compensate them? Of course they would take out the video player. Good things should be shared with the forest. This matter alarmed the Great Elder, and in the end, Vivian had no choice but to hand over her beloved video disc player under pressure. Because of this matter, she cried all night, as if her most beloved toy had been snatched away by someone else. Night gradually fell. Little Princess Vivian had a bitter look on her face as she stayed in the treehouse. In just a few short days, she felt the deep malice of this world. Now that the video player had been borrowed, she didn't know when those people would return it. Elder Obersen was not willing to reveal the origin of the video player because the elves were a peaceful race with principles. Elder Obersen was afraid that once the origin was revealed, that place would no longer be peaceful. But Obersen had miscalculated. Did he think that no one would know if he didn't say it? Little Princess Vivian had a magnetic sound device in her hands as well as several dozen discs bought from the Southern Summer Country humans. These discs were bought by Elder Obersen at a high price in the Southern Summer Country, and he did not know what was recorded on them. Vivian had learned her lesson. She hid these things and enjoyed them secretly every night. There were stories, there was music, there was teaching, and there were all kinds of lectures. In short, the content was very rich. What made little Princess Vivian the most pleasantly surprised was that she found out that these things came from a small human kingdom in the north. What made little Princess Vivian even more excited was that Chu Tian from the movies really existed. These cameras, the magnetic sound device, the video player, and everything else, they were all invented by him. Chapter 692. The Southern Summer Imperial City was filled with the War Hound's banners. The imperial city had fallen and all resistance had been killed. The imperial city had been in chaos for several days and a quarter of the 7-8 million people had died in the chaos. The rest had chosen to surrender and pledge their loyalty. The war hounds had looted and burned for several days and nights. The wealth and resources accumulated by the families in Imperial City over 100 years had all become the Fong King's spoils of war. The fierce demon wolf cavalry had quickly captured the Imperial region and several dozen cities in Song State. Now over 40 million southern summer citizens had become the war hounds' vassals. Wang Tianlong was high-spirited. This was because after the Fong King occupied the Imperial region, he immediately made Wang Tianlong the new king. Through Wang Tianlong's human identity, he could rule the southern summer citizens, which was much easier than the Fong King personally ruling. After all, these humans had lived on this land for generations and had a deep hatred for the northern spirit beasts, so it was not easy to directly rule them. So what if he was a vassal king? It was not something a marquis could compare to. Wang Tianlong got what he wanted. Now, his biggest wish was to take back all the remaining lands that were struggling at death's door. Other than that, there was another matter that was stuck in Wang Tianlong's throat. Chu Tian. He didn't know why, but he felt that as long as Chu Tian didn't die, he would not be able to sleep peacefully. When the scouts brought back news, Chu Tian had indeed escaped to Central State. He had even pushed Dongfang Gan onto the throne and was preparing to fight against the Great Summer Country. Wang Tianlong was so angry that he smashed a cup. He immediately notified Nangong Ling, who was now a ruler, and the two of them quickly entered the royal palace, preparing to report to the Fong King. The Fong King was currently receiving an envoy from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. This Eagle Burial envoy was covered in a black robe, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. Even with the Fong King's incomparably respected status, he still had to show some respect to this person. The Eagle Burial envoy first praised the Fong King a few times. "Your Highness has ruled the war hounds and quickly destroyed the southern summer country. The king has high praise for this and will properly reward you after the battle. I hope your Highness will continue to expand south, allowing the Eagle Burial Kingdom's southern territory to reach the Forest of Chaos." With one large and one small kingdom joining in, the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence will increase by another step. The king might even become an emperor in 100 years. The Fong King did not care about these questions and only asked, "Have the Eagle Burial Kingdom's reinforcements arrived?" "Your Highness has asked for 100,000 reinforcements, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom is fighting all over and all sides are shocked. The southern summer imperial city has already been destroyed and there are only a few people left, but against a powerful army, why would we need 100,000 reinforcements? Although the Vulture Cavalry is not the Eagle Burial Kingdom's trump card, it is still a very precious aerial force. We can only send 20,000 cavalry at most. This is already our limit. Your Highness, please don't make it hard." The Fong King was a bit unhappy. Although the southern summer country can't even take a single blow, there is a large difference between the north and south of the southern summer country. My demon wolf cavalry cannot cross the mountains and rivers, so we need a large-scale aerial force to quickly end this battle. Your Highness is too cautious. The Eagle Burial envoy disagreed. Even if the demon wolf cavalry cannot fight, you still have the several 100,000 soldiers from the Warhound Plains and the remaining 10,000 Vulture Cavalry. Adding in the 20,000 Vulture Cavalry, even if we don't use any tactics, we can still break through a few normal southern summer cities. The Fong King gave a snort. Your Highness wanting to end this battle quickly isn't wrong, but you have to consider the kingdom's overall situation. For a southern summer that can't rise again, there is no need to invest too much of the Eagle Burial Kingdom's battle strength. The Eagle Burial envoy said this and then added, "You don't need to be too anxious. The king has given us 3 months of time, so no matter how hard we humans defend, 3 months is more than enough." The Eagle Burial envoy left the palace after giving his orders. His sharp eyes swept over Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling, revealing a look of ridicule and disdain. Were these lowly humans worthy of being the Eagle Burial Kingdom's opponents? This Highness truly didn't know what was good for him. 100,000 Vulture Cavalry? Wasn't this just nonsense? It was hard for a large kingdom to use a 100,000 aerial army. Now that they were dealing with a small kingdom, a dying one at that, he actually asked for 100,000 reinforcements? If it wasn't for unifying the war hounds and winning 2 battles, the king would give him a bit of face. Otherwise, even 20,000 could forget about it. The Fong king softly asked, "Have you investigated the matter I asked you to investigate?" Nangong Ling quickly cupped his hands and said, "The strange weapons used by the Southern Summer Defenders have been investigated. These are special equipment manufactured in a secret factory near Imperial City." A glow flashed in the Fong king's eyes. It really is a mass-produced weapon. Such a weak small kingdom actually has such a sharp new weapon. Have you found the blueprints or production personnel? Also, I've heard that the Southern Summer humans have invented something that can communicate over 1,000 miles and broadcast sound. Have you found this technology yet? We ask the Fong king to punish us. Nangong Yun said in a terrified voice, "These new technologies have not been around for long and they are all in Miracle Commerce's hands. All the related equipment in the city has been destroyed and the secret factory outside the city has been heavily damaged, so we can't find anything of value for now." Waste. The Fong king slapped Nangong Ling into the wall. Nangong Ling did not dare resist and could only kowtow to accept his punishment. "Fong king, calm your anger." Wang Tianlong respectfully bowed down. "I've received news that Chu Tian's group has escaped to the south and is currently in Central State. As long as we catch him, everything will be in our hands." In the Imperial City battle, the fierce firepower of the Source Energy submachine guns and the shocking might of the Source Energy bombs had left a deep impression on the Fong king. The Fong king thought it was a secret treasure at first, but who would have thought that after investigating, it was actually a mass-produced weapon? This made the Fong king very excited. If he could obtain this kind of equipment, the Eagle Burial Kingdom's strength would increase by several times. It would be too easy for them to become an emperor. "We've searched the merchant caravans and stored ships, so we've already gathered enough." Wang Tianlong knelt down on one knee. "Please give the order. As long as Central State falls, the last resistance of the Southern Summer country will collapse. At that time, the 200 million Southern Summer citizens will all become subjects of the Warhound's kingdom, forever farming and producing for the Fong king." The Fong king was a bit hesitant. Today's position was not obtained through bravery. The Fong king was not only a peak expert, he was also a clear-headed commander. He did not let 2 large victories go to his head, rather he calmly analyzed the situation. There was no doubt that the remaining Southern Summer army could not even block the Warhounds, not to mention the Eagle Burial Kingdom army. But now they were faced with 2 variables. The first was the terrain variable. The second was the unexpected variable. The Warhounds would have to pass through the 4 states lake if they continued south, but the Warhounds were not good at fighting in the water. Moreover, the ships they stole from the Southern Summer merchants and the old warships in the warehouse could not compare to the Southern Summer warships. If they fought on the 4 states lake, the Warhounds might not have an advantage. Other than that, did the Southern Summer country still have those powerful weapons? Once this weapon was used in a water battle, it would have a strong killing effect. This was something they had to be guarded against. Wang Tianlong was filled with doubt. Whether it is our numbers or strength, we have an overwhelming advantage. What is the Fong king worried about? Alright. The Fong king made his decision. Immediately pass down my orders. The Demon Wolf cavalry will stay behind and the rest of the army will prepare to head south. Understood. Wang Tianlong revealed a look of joy and immediately asked, "Then what is the strategy?" The Fong king had already thought of a strategy. "You will lead the 600,000 warhounds to head south. The fleet cannot be concentrated and will be split into 5 fleets of 100,000 people. They will take different routes and land at different locations in Central State. The Southern Summer country's army is weaker than our army, so their only chance of victory is to defeat us on the water. However, their army is not as large as ours, so we will scatter to land and make it difficult for them. At most we will attack 1 or 2 locations and most of the army will be able to land. Wang Tianlong's eyes lit up. Splitting the army to land is one of the strategies. It is a strong attack. The Fang king continued, I will lead 30,000 vulture cavalry and the various tribe chiefs from Tsang state. We will pass through the mountains to the north of Central State and launch a surprise attack on Central State City. A surprise attack and a strong attack, a two-pronged attack. How could Central State City stop them? The southern summer country had lost 2 battles, but they did not lose unjustly. The Fang king was an experienced commander, his strategies were always impeccable. At least from Wang Tianlong's point of view, Central State City would definitely die in this battle. The Central State Army's battle strength could be ignored. The southern summer country had 300,000 cavalry, but their overall strength could not compare to the Warhounds, so they had no chance of winning in a head-on clash. As long as the Warhounds' army landed, they would forcefully attack Central State City. The Warhounds would split into 5 groups. Even if Central State sent out all their forces to intercept them on the water, the Warhounds were not good at fighting on the water and their ships were old, so they could only intercept 1 or 2 groups. The other groups would be able to surround Central State City. This was already very hard to break. Not to mention that in the Fang King's strategy, there was a hidden surprise attack. He would personally lead the air force from the north, crossing over the mountains to launch a surprise attack on Central State. No matter how good the calm martial ruler's tactics were, if he wanted to intercept the Warhounds' army of 600,000, it was impossible if he didn't send out all his forces. But once he sent out all his forces, Central State City would be very empty. Under the surprise attack of 30,000 aerial troops, Central State City would definitely fall. If Central State City fell, no matter how beautiful the battle on the 4 States Lake was, it would be meaningless. The fall of Central State was an inevitable result. The Fang King was truly worthy of being the Eagle Burial Empire's king. He could think of such a detailed and ruthless plan in this short period of time. Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling were filled with confidence. Although Dong Fanggon's military talent did not lose to the Fang King's, in a situation where both sides were at the same level, strength was the deciding factor. The Fang King watched the 2 of them leave. He didn't know why, but he had a vague premonition that this battle would not be easy. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.